Have some people, bro. You know what blew my mind the other day is I had someone. We show up and I had two different friends of mine go. It was our last podcast. They were like, "Man, that was a really good episode you guys just did." And it was like the day after I put it up, and it blew my mind. Yeah,
that's cool.
And I mean, I don't have any illusions of grandeur with this podcast. I do it because it's fun, and then me and you have found this groove. We've known each other for a long time, and we found this thought groove of where we like to discuss, just different things, hobbies, religion, from a very standoff, non-judgmental perspective, and it's been really fun. And so, yes, thank you to anyone who pays any attention to this at all, and know that anybody that's ever sitting in this seat, it's because I want to talk to them.
I like it.
Period. I don't know. I'm not talking to anybody I don't want to talk to. But, man, it's just fun. It's a lot of fun. I mean, what do you think about it so far? Have you enjoyed it?
I love it.
Do you feel like it's helped you outside of podcasting, like in life in any way?
Absolutely.
I do too.
Absolutely. You know what it's doing? It really is. It's a component of my creative side. I've never experienced my creative side. We've had that conversation a bunch of times. For those of you who don't know, I was in the military for a bunch of years, and now I'm a firefighter, full-time, local department. Been doing right brain stuff. And now I'm on the creative side. I'm actually actively writing my second book, fiction stuff. I'm into that, storytelling. Once everything gets published, by the way, the 23rd of August is my meeting with the publisher.
That's what's up.
So hopefully that'll go well, and we'll get that going. But
so the publisher, are they here in Nashville?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So about the podcast, it's another component. And I don't know if you feel the same way, but
I do.
It's so creative, man.
Well, anytime you make any kind of YouTube videos, which, I've dabbled in the past with like the records, I'll get little notions. I don't do it. I never do any of this just because I want to get views or clicks, or like I said before, have any kind of illusions of grandeur. But there will be certain things that'll just hit me at a certain time, and I'll go, man, I really want to talk about that.
Absolutely.
And I was really excited when I was going to bed last night. I was like texting you like, hey man, here's some ideas I've had. And like, I'll get really excited and my brain will think about all the different things we're going to talk about. And that's where I feel like the creativity for me comes in is it's almost like mental creativity. Like, hey, I've had this idea or I've been thinking about this thing. Well, why am I thinking about it? What else is there to that? Almost like a psychological perspective on different items that we discuss. So like music or whatever, like, why am I into this? Why do I want to talk about it? What could I say? What could be different that I'm saying that anybody else has said? And so that's where I really try to be is, say something meaningful or say something to me that's describing this item. That almost puts it in its place for me or gives me a spot to explore mentally for a while.
You know what's amazing too? Actually, I just now caught this, is that this is the first time I actually looked at that camera like we were talking to somebody. And it's very odd. That's a very odd feeling.
You know what's awesome?
I don't know what that is, but it's
Let's
difficult. It's difficult to do.
It is.
I mean, I'm talking to you and I hope that you guys are telling your family and friends about this show. But right now I'm looking at a camera and it's odd.
Yeah, we're like, and behind the camera is like a kitchen. And there's nobody in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is odd. The first time I did this, I don't know if you had this same feeling, but the first time you podcast, you almost feel like you're sitting on a stage and the people are already watching you, but they're not.
Correct.
It's so laid back and it's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really is. And we have coffee now. We have a couple improvements. This is the first podcast where I have to keep in mind that we're on Spotify and Apple Music and Google. You like that little plug I just did there?
Yeah, it was
good. We are. It's just like one move forward every single time. So if you go back to the very first episode and watch it, the couch is like over here in the corner, had no idea what I was doing. And you just go and you just keep figuring out one little thing. And then, guests, set up, all of it. It's fun. Yeah. I think there's something to that, man. Like humans just want to toil. It's probably the same reason why people like to garden.
You know what it is? Very same conversation I was having with some my firefighter buddies the other day about standing still. Okay. Sometimes there's times to stand still, but we talk about one of the fears about retiring, and I'm sure your dad thinks about this or talks about it, but one of the fears is when you retire and you're out of the job and you've had time to think, to reflect, and some things come up that you don't want to reflect over, you know, and some people have a tough time with that. The same exact thing with this. Like,
oh, I got a really good.
Yeah, go ahead.
Got an example? I got a good example. So I had a buddy of mine, Tiger Gullet. Me and him had one, and it was back when
Gullet.
Everything. He's a great guy, man. He was a preacher for 20-something years.
His name is Gullet?
Yeah, Tiger Gullet. Well, his real name is Roy Gullet, but his parents have called him Tiger since he was really little.
Do you know what a gullet is?
I know what a gullet is.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, sorry.
Do you want to fight him?
No.
We could film that. We move the couches, you and him just fight, and we'll put it out. Episode 14. We're plugging it. But anyway,
it's a funny word.
So me and him, we podcasted, and I was still going through a lot of the religious questioning and stuff that I was
never
going
to be done with that.
Yeah, me either. I don't think you should be, but afterwards, me and him almost didn't put that episode up because we were looking back on what we had said, and we were like, man, we were so negative about these different religious things. But looking back now, I really just needed to get that out. I just needed to say that to somebody to get those negative emotions out of the way. And now looking at it, I see it completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's what you were trying to say, but I feel that way on this podcast sometimes, where I will vet some kind of idea. I'm going back and I'm editing it, and I'm thinking, man, I really wish I hadn't said it that way. Or I wish I'd said it or I wish I had used different words or expounded a little more. So there's a lot of learning when I can see myself saying something. There's like all these learning experiences that I've had.
That's exactly where I was going with that was, I would like to, in my retirement years, which isn't that far off, to have something where I am creating and keep working. I feel like if you're standing still, you're dying. I believe that. You got to keep moving. You got to keep learning. You got to try to do something, maybe do something that you haven't ever done. Explore yourself. You know what I mean? I believe in that. And I haven't really believed in that until the last few years. A friend of mine, J.D. Fotopoulos, he was killed in a motorcycle wreck. This was, man, it's going to be 5 years this year. This August, next month, it'll be, or are we already in August? In August this year, it'll be 5 years, and he was killed. He was hit by a car. He was in Honduras on vacation, got hit by a car, killed him. So shout out to his brother, John. We've become friends. He lives in Michigan, but ever since that happened, and he was young, he's 40. And I thought, man, life is too short. That's when it kind of hit me, just in an instant, someone can be gone like that. So you need to explore.
Was he killed here in Tennessee?
No, he was in Honduras when it happened. Real narrow
did you
roads,
say that?
and I may have, I don't know.
Was he a missionary or something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So anyway, life's too short, and kind of live it to the fullest and never quit moving. And that's one of the other things too, is that with fire department or civil service in particular, people don't last very long after they retire. They just don't.
I think there's a statistic to that with all retirement.
Yeah,
I don't know
if you're
it's
sitting
just
around,
firemen,
you're going to die.
Is that like a medical thing? It's like 5 years.
You
right?
got to have a purpose. I think that's in our DNA.
I do. I believe that. How much, let me ask you this though, for people who are younger. So obviously people who are in a career, we talk about stuff from a lot of different perspectives. So on this one, you like that?
Yeah, it's good.
I do. I like it too. Thank you. But we have people that may listen to us that are obviously like you, who are already in a career, and there may be younger people who hear some of this, and it's like, do you think that the way the world is now, if you could find that passion earlier versus waiting for retirement, I mean, you're starting to kind of plug into some of yours now,
dude.
And I feel like from the day, and it may just be personality.
That's a great question. I want to hear your figuring though on that first.
So my feeling on it is you have to make the boat's got to float, right? I mean, if you're going to have a family, if you're going to have a home, if you're going to have kids, if you're going to have a car, whatever, you have to pay for that.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of how much money the government is sending everybody right now.
Yeah, really.
You know what I mean? Like, there are people out here that have to work, and there are people that have to make actual money that doesn't just come for free.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'm not trying to say some kind of, that's just a blanket statement, period. That's a truth of life.
Mm-hmm.
That at some point, if you're going to make it, or you're wanting more in life, I guess we do have some kind of like baseline safety net in this country now. So let's acknowledge that. But then if you want more, like if you don't like the house you live in now and you want a better house, like you got to come up with the money somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, if you could find your idea, your thing that you're really passionate about, and you could make it make sense and make money,
wow,
do it. But I mean, I don't think there's that many people that get that right off the bat, right out of college, right out of high school, whatever. I mean, I think you have athletes, musicians, people with some sort of just natural talent that someone will pay for right this second.
When you mean natural talent, not
dancers, singers,
non-physical, just the art side, left brain stuff.
I mean, I guess. I mean, somebody could be into like stripping, right, and you could do that at 18, right? And
well, yeah, but that's still physical. I mean,
yeah,
like.
But I guess in my case, because I can only speak for mine, it's like I knew I loved music, and my job to this day still isn't 100% music or whatever. But I mean, it's still part of my life. It was always this side gig that we did, and now my wife does it 100%.
Dude, what?
But it's been fun. That
is great.
But I think the journey, and that's what I really wanted to hit right there, is I don't know that it actually matters whether you find it early or whether you find it late. My personal opinion, and this is my opinion, is that as long as you're seeking to find it, it's that journey. You know, like think about somebody who draws. I don't know at what age you get good at drawing if you're a person that can just design this type stuff, but you probably haven't always been good at it, and you're probably going to be better in 20 years. But don't worry about what you're going to be like in 20 years. Just enjoy the journey, enjoy the process of doing it. And that's what it's been for me on this podcast. Like my very first episode, I don't really even like talking about this because it's negative, but the very first episode I did is actually not online. It was about 50 seconds long, and the dude I was doing it with, a friend of mine, like walked out, and I hadn't talked to him since. Like there are obstacles in the way. There are things that, yeah, it is strange, and I don't really like talking about it, but yeah, I mean, there's stuff that like will jump up in your face, things that will get in your way, or like there may be anxiety. Like for you, you've never talked to a publisher before, or maybe you have, but you don't know how that goes. But you're going to know things after you do it that will help you with the next one. So, or maybe not the next one, but the next interaction, you know, or it's going to help you further understand what this is, this writing a book and getting it out there. You're going to understand what that world looks like more.
I don't know if anybody in the music industry, as in an artist, shows up at 40 years old with a hit who's never done music before.
Sturgill Simpson.
Who's never done music before.
He's probably the closest.
So he's been going to bars or clubs.
Not even that. That dude worked just like odd jobs. I forget what he did, but it was like just some roughneck stuff.
So he was not in music.
Oh, it was a train yard or something. No, I think he always not played professionally, but he liked it. He had man, they nabbed it up pretty quick. I can't even think of the name of the band. It was like something Sunday. He had a band that was kind of a bluegrass band. And then, man, I guess it was like 5 or 6 years ago now is when he really busted out and blew up. Maybe it was, bro, I can't keep all the dates straight anymore. I have kids.
So he's a good example.
But yeah, but it didn't happen for him until way later in life. I think there are examples of that, but it's not the norm. You're right.
Well,
I mean, it's mostly
it's not the norm
people.
In really any, I would assume, for instance, in the movies, obviously, for those of you who don't know, I'm a big movie fan. I love movies. I'm the guy that talks through movies during the movie because I'm self-analyzing.
Don't go through that door like in public. Are you that guy?
I am that guy, and I hate to be that guy, but it is true. But so
don't be that guy, man.
There's plenty of examples in the movies of people that play a role and then they're a hit. people want him in other movies. There's plenty of examples.
Bro, don't you think
Morgan
it's a weird
Freeman
thing?
was like that.
Like, you're famous for acting like somebody that you're not.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Wouldn't that be weird?
Yeah. Morgan Freeman is that example. He started when he was 40 in the movies. And then I want to say Samuel L. Jackson too. He didn't get started till way later.
Dude, isn't he? He's either number one
they're
or
almost
two.
80, man.
He's number one or two on like the high, like the movies he's in. If you listed all his movies,
They're
the
phenomenal.
highest grossing movies
Yeah,
ever. But he's been in some big stuff, man. He's been in Star Wars,
it's
all
great.
the Quentin Tarantino stuff.
So my example would be if it came in earlier in their lives, would they be anywhere near what they are right now, or is the timing perfect, like you said?
Well, I believe that.
You know,
it's all you know.
I'm
It's all
glad
they
that
know.
it worked out the way that it did, because I wouldn't have a retirement and healthcare and all that stuff if I had been in the
Perspective.
arts my whole life. Probably.
I wonder if
would
that's why
say.
people like Morgan Freeman seem so down to earth. And Sturgill Simpson the same way. It's like, hey man, Trace Adkins is another one. I'm not a Trace Adkins fan, but I think he worked on oil rigs. I think that dude's almost died like 3 or 4 times too.
Really?
But he was a roughneck guy and then turned to country music. But I don't know, man. Maybe it makes their art more real.
Maybe
Maybe the struggle. Like there's something to that. I mean, all your guys like David Goggins, and I mean, a lot of them will talk about the struggle is like, it's not only is it the path, it's the thing that gives you the results. It's like you don't have anything without that struggle. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to
believe that.
I would like to think that if I had started my podcast when I was like 20, that maybe it would be bigger or something by now. But I mean, that would be the only benefit, because I don't think I would have the same knowledge that I feel like I want to, like I want it to grow, and I want to explore just the different stuff that's in my head, or that I believe, or bounce it off what somebody else says. So
how about this one? How about this one? As something that'll blow your mind. Can you regress?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Like you can work so hard and be educated and be aware, and then regress, maybe even deteriorate, not necessarily because of some sort of health issue, but maybe your mind becomes so clouded, let's say from, I don't know, from woke theories or being around the wrong people with bad influences. I think that's possible too.
Yeah, I mean,
you can regress
drugs,
for sure.
Alcohol.
Well, outside of that, but just from ideas, I think you can regress.
Well,
from ideas.
take musicians, and a lot of, I mean, I hate to always talk about musicians, but think about a musician. So you get somebody who comes out, and they make their first 1 or 2 records, and they're huge. They're selling out the Ryman. You know, maybe they move up, and then they're playing Bridgestone Arena or whatever it's called today, and they play that for a while. And then the problem with being famous in music specifically is the fans they're not technically your fans. They're fans of popular music. And I don't care who wants to argue that, but I think that the data and the facts on the longevity of bands will back me up on this, that eventually those fans will leave you, and they're still going to be going to the arena. They're just not going to be seeing you. They're going to be seeing whatever the next thing is, or, maybe Motley Crue got back together or whatever. And then you're not going to get the attention that you once did. Like, I think there is a life cycle to that. Like, there are very few people that have a Bruce Springsteen, a Neil Young following. And even those guys did not have those followings the entire time that they had their careers. Neil Young, in the 80s and early 90s, he's playing clubs. And then now, because my generation and subsequent generations are getting into this music too, his fan base is swelling and growing, and he's done a lot of interesting stuff. So has Springsteen. So I think it's a roller coaster for a lot of those guys. And then think about there's very few Rolling Stones, Metallicas that can just year in and year out. And even think about Metallica, man, back in the 90s with all that Napster stuff. There's a lot of people that were just like, nah, man, I'm done with Metallica.
Yeah, but I mean, it always comes back to nostalgia, doesn't it? I mean, if you got a band that's still doing stuff for 30 years, they're going to have that base.
Yeah, at a certain point.
Yeah.
At a certain point, it's almost like it ages like fine wine where, oh, yeah, I forgot about the Black Crowes. They're coming, man. Let's go see them. I haven't seen them in forever. I used to love that.
Plus,
I get that.
they were broke in 89. Now, you know, they've had a career
really good
and
point.
They've got money. And
you know, they say that about comics. It's like these comics are really funny. They're poor, and it's like fighters. They're trying to get out there. They're trying to make their way, and then they hit it, and now all of a sudden they're not funny anymore because what are they going to joke about? Being rich?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's not funny. Jokes about rich people doing rich things isn't that funny.
Right.
And I think sometimes that's my only beef, and I hate to even say this, but my wife has said it before, like with the Joe Rogan podcast. Like sometimes if he's talking to somebody from L.A. and he's from L.A., it's like it just gets snooty for like just a second. You're like, oh my God, bro. And then you know, he does a really good job of being a regular guy.
Oh yeah.
But he's not a regular guy, and you know,
yeah,
he's not getting regular guests. All of that. So I think a lot of that starts to play into the end result. You know, where for him it is a positive because he's talking to people like Quentin Tarantino, Jacob Dylan. I mean, there's been some really, you know, bigger name people lately. Not that the rest of his aren't big name, but.
And you know what's great about it? What's great about him as an example, I'm just saying this as an example, is that none of us have to listen to him. None of us gets our news from him. None of us, if they are, then that's wrong. He'll even be the first to tell you that. But I want to hear it, right? He's created a product, and his product is him, though. He may not be a regular guy anymore. He may have used to be, and he may still be a regular guy in his sense, and in our sense. But he has a security detail. I mean, he has to,
for sure.
You know, I mean, he's a very popular guy. So there's some changes to go through. But I bet when he's at home and he's got the girls around, they're watching movies, and they got friends over or something. I bet it's just like us, just, you know, hanging out. You know, just
I would say
ordinary
he's
stuff.
As regular of a guy as a
he doesn't need
millionaire
Hollywood.
comedian can be. The cool things that I see that he does that really impresses me. He's very adamant about fact checking.
Oh yeah,
his stuff. And you know that is.
Some would argue that Google isn't a good fact.
Yeah, but young Jamie doesn't always just do Google.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
He's pretty good about. He's that dude actually is legit. I think that dude's.
He is
a big piece of that show. He's good, but kind of getting back to what we're saying.
Sorry.
I mean, he if you go back and watch the original Joe Rogan episodes, it's like him and Brian Redbane sitting in a Redbane. I don't know how you say his name, but they're like sitting looking at a webcam on some computer, just straight, just talking
Everything
about whatever comes to mind,
and it pops up. Jamie's on it, and he puts it on the thing, and
yeah. So, you know, as far as that and how it relates to my podcast, I mean, he's the standard for sure. He's doing really well. I think finishing what I was saying earlier, I think he's always trying to pull comedians and other podcasters or people that he thinks are important or have some sort of message that's important for the times. He feels like he's always trying to give those people a platform. Like and I think that makes him seem very appreciative of what he has.
Agreed. And you know how I can prove it?
Prove it.
I am so happy doing this.
Yeah.
It's hard to even describe it, how much of an escape it is.
It is. I mean, I think there's a scientific, there has to be a scientific reason for why when two people sit and just talk.
It is, man.
You're on some kind of plane. You're I don't know, man. You're just jiving.
Did you ever you saw Will Smith in I Am Legend, right?
Yeah.
He had the German Shepherd and everybody died or whatever. And he set up the mannequins around everywhere, and he acted like he had a normal life. He'd go into the movie rental place and pick a movie and had a guy behind the counter, a mannequin that he would talk to. And we're social creatures.
For sure.
So
100%.
Right away, we're already social to have conversations with people. But the good thing is that you and I have known each other for a long time, and I think we have similar tastes in a lot of different aspects of life. So our conversation it's fluid, right?
For sure.
This is an escape for me.
Me too.
It really is.
Well, how many other times in your life? I mean,
and to have a conversation, I love it.
You were just telling me before this podcast, we were discussing some stuff, and you were saying that there were like 3 or 4 guys that you talked to the other day for like 4 hours.
Oh yeah.
And I left. I went to see my kids yesterday afternoon, their classes, the jiu-jitsu classes last night, and I sat there and talked to these 2 guys for like an hour and a half. One guy I hadn't seen in like 7 years, and then the other guy I know getting to know pretty well, and we're sitting there talking. And by the end of it, I was just like, man, I really enjoy that. And I get this.
I'm
like,
a conversationalist.
You know, I can call somebody and try to get a podcast going whenever. But to I don't know, man, anytime you're sitting there connecting with other human beings, and for me, it's almost like a kid where I just want to know, like, what was he going to say next? He's got some cool story. Like you were telling me right before this that you met David Copperfield.
Yeah.
Like, dude, David Copperfield to me, if I could pick one person for real, like if I there's 2 people that if I could ever just sit him here and talk to him, that I would really pay money to do it. David Copperfield and Neil Young. I think David Copperfield would be cooler to talk to than Neil Young. I don't know how conversational Neil is, but
I was
so into him as a kid, man.
Dude, I was in Atlanta. I was with my cousin Scooter and his now wife. It was his girlfriend at the time, and her sister.
Bro, what's Scooter doing? Is he okay?
Yeah.
What's up, Scooter?
What's up, Scooter?
What's up, Scoot?
He's actually he's a scientist. He works for a big car manufacturer. He does their plastics, works on various things on cars, and in Japan a lot. It comes back and forth. But anyway, really smart guy. But anyway, so we're in Atlanta, and of course we're bar hopping. This is before I go into basic training back in '96, and it was like the week before. And, you know, let's go have a good time in Buckhead. I don't know if you've been to Buckhead.
I know Buckhead.
Yeah, it's a nice place.
I've stayed at the Waldorf Astoria in Buckhead, bro.
That's right over by Sir.
I had a free
what's
night.
His name's house?
I don't have Waldorf Astoria money. I just had a free Hilton night.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
What's the guy, the piano man?
Billy Joel?
No, I'm sorry. He plays the piano.
Chris Martin from Coldplay?
He's Sir. God dang it! What's his freaking name?
Kelly Slater?
No.
I can do this all day.
I know. But anyway, he lives over there. At least he used to. He used to live in Buckhead in Atlanta. But anyway, so it's late and we're at this place, and I swear it feels like a speakeasy because it's a gravel lot and there's kind of a line out back, which makes this whole episode even more odd. So I'm walking and I'm talking at the same time, meaning I'm turned to my right, you know, talking to my cousin as we're walking along, and I literally run right into the back of this person, and he's kind of tall. And
Bro, you touched David Copperfield?
yeah, I physically.
Did he disappear?
No.
Did he like change into something?
No, he
What
did
a letdown.
not. And
Did he fly? Did he just like fly away?
He might have, but I don't remember. I've been drinking so much. But anyway, so
I turned around to throw up and he was gone, man.
I bumped into him, and he turns around, and I said, "Sorry about that, my bad." And my cousin goes, "Hey, how's it going?" And talk, you know, just for a second. And you guys, I forget what it was exactly, but it was a conversation, just one of those little, you know, shoot the breeze kind of things. Like, you guys been here before? No. First time. Oh, okay. Well, you'll like it here. It's a nice place. Just one of those little chit chat things. And then he walked over here.
But y'all didn't know who, you hadn't recognized who he was yet. Like
Scooter,
it didn't register.
Scooter knew instantly who it was.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until he told me, he said, "That was freaking David Copperfield, man."
Dude, but I don't even know if kids now would know who David Copperfield is.
No, probably not.
Bro, he was awesome.
He doesn't do anything anymore,
yeah,
does
he? He's out at the MGM in Vegas.
Hmm.
I was in Vegas, and I'm telling you that I feel like I'm one of the biggest David Copperfield. Bro, I used to time it and like tape it on VHS tapes, and I used to have all these VHS tapes where I taped all these magic shows.
Oh, yeah.
I was into it as a kid, man.
Well, and plus he was all we had.
He used to have specials. Like before all this live stream stuff, they would advertise. You remember that? They would advertise it for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Huge.
Yeah, everybody.
And then he
would order pizza.
He got to where he was doing live stuff. I remember him doing. He made a plane disappear.
Bro, my grandmother took me to see him. I was like
sure
14 or 15. T-Pack.
Really?
Yes, he flew, bro. I talked about this on a different podcast, but it's so cool. I will say this, man. I'm very appreciative to my parents for recognizing how into magic I was and kind of leaning into it. I think it's important. Like my dad didn't do magic. My mom didn't do magic. I guess it was through that and other TV shows, and it was decently big at the time. Like they used to sell those little like magic works, magic tricks at like Toys R Us. I don't know if you remember that, but it was, I don't want to say it was commercial, but I mean, it was a little more popular at the time. There were plenty of TV shows that would come on, almost like they have all these singing shows now that are just so ridiculous. There's just too many of them. They used to have magic shows that would come on TV regularly, and I would always tape them and then go back and watch them. But I was really into it, but my grandmother really leaned into that and recognized that, and I think it was me and her. I don't remember whether my brother went or not. I imagine he probably did, but it was just my grandmother. It wasn't a big deal. It was just like, David Copperfield's here, and she took me.
That's
and it was really cool, man. And I'm still appreciative of that.
You know who it is today, though?
Who's that?
David Blaine.
Yeah.
Have you seen his stuff?
Yeah.
Talk about timing. I bet if he was doing this in the early 80s, they probably would have killed him.
That was like 30 years ago now, though.
Yeah,
what you're talking
That's
about.
what I'm saying. They would have figured that he was practicing real witchcraft.
But I'm saying David Blaine, even in his prime, was like 20 years ago now.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
So there's a guy, there's a lot of his magic tricks that David Blaine does that's really this other guy named Paul Harris. So there's like these guys that invent the stuff. Like they'll invent the little moves or the tricks.
It's incredible.
It's awesome.
It's unbelievable what they're doing.
And really, man, we didn't even plan to talk about this, but I think it even plays into a lot of what we're saying. Like, magic was this thing that existed before computers, and it'd be like if you knew a trick and I knew a trick, we would just trade. Like, hey, man, check this out. I was in Atlanta in 5 Points, and there used to be this guy who did magic tricks on the street for just tips and money. And I sat there, I was talking to him, and I got really excited. It's just really cool to see people doing it because you don't see it a lot anymore. And so he showed me a trick. I showed him a trick. This was like 7-8 years ago. And he told me about a book that I ordered, and then I told him about a book. It was this pass of information, human to human. It was really cool.
That is cool.
But that's what it was like back when David Copperfield was on TV. Like, that's what magic was at that point.
Did you feel like at the time we were too small to really think about it as kids, but now looking back at how commercialized everything was back then, it seems.
Do you think it was more commercialized then or now?
Of course, dude. Well, I don't know. That's a tough one because I think this generation.
I think it was commercialized then, and we almost live in the commercial now.
Probably.
Or some people do. Mm-hmm. I mean, because think everything. I remember having an iPhone when they were first coming out. But you weren't so connected to it. You were going to it to like, I'm going to go look at what I want to look at. Like, you know, why do birds poop on cars? Stuff like that. Yeah. Why do birds poop on new cars, clean cars, whatever. But now it's like you pick up your phone. Hey, this is what you missed while you were gone. And it's the algorithm trying to loop you back in so they can advertise you something. That's what it is now.
So, yeah. So this generation, to answer your question, I really do think that they've recognized the cool factor or the simplicity of mom and pop, of
I hope so.
Of downsizing. You know,
I hope so.
Tiny homes.
That's what America is. I've never seen that more clearly now. I told Ashley the other day, I was like, man, we really. I want to make a list of little restaurants around here. I don't want to give my money to some. I mean, I like McDonald's. I do. I personally do. Maybe that's a. What's the?
I can't remember the last time I had.
It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I like McDonald's. I don't care how healthy I ever get in my life. Like, I don't care if I'm ripped out, full 6-pack, all that. I'm going to get some McDonald's every once in a while. I just like it. I mean, my grandmother used to take me to McDonald's as a kid. I like it. I don't care. But
did you ever had a McDonald's birthday party? I did not.
No.
That's an ultimate regret in my life.
Dude, let's do it. Let's go podcast over there. There's nobody over there.
Why not?
On your birthday. Let's ask them. At McDonald's.
Well, my birthday is Christmas Day.
It's even better.
Just joking. Anyway, so
just break in.
I think that they're gonna. Yeah. I think they've got it right. I really do. This generation,
McDonald's or the generation.
This generation, I think, gets a hard time for all the nonsense, the social nonsense. But I think they got it right on a lot of different levels, though. I think they got it right on music, dude. And I know it wasn't this generation necessarily, but breaking the norms. You had talked about a gatekeeper aspect with music and that sort of thing in bands. And dude, for a long time, there was maybe 7 people who decided what America was going to listen to all the time.
Yeah, now I do agree with that. I think the spread of information that we have now is really good.
And then,
but it's also really bad at the same time. It can be very bad at the same time.
Well, maybe. And then there were 3 people who decided what they could say. You know, that's the great thing about a podcast. It's a great thing about, it used to be about YouTube, but.
Yeah, there's definitely more voices. Mm-hmm. But don't you think the problem is there's more voices? There's
more voices, but they get canceled or weeded out. The ones that are nonsense or hurtful, I think. And I don't think it's necessarily fair all the time, but sometimes just it's not worthy to listen to, and it dies on the vine.
I guess what I would say in the generations past, and then talking about our generation, I've really been thinking a lot about like the physical aspect, like VHS, vinyl. You like VHS tapes, obviously like vinyl records. And I don't remember who asked me the question, but they said, why do you think you like music so much? Why do you think you like records so much?
I like it.
And,
let's hear it.
And I've always liked music ever since I was a kid. And I've talked about that before, that my parents always played a lot of music. I would even hear them talk about going to concerts that they had been to. I remember them saying they had been to Buckhead, Boston, all these different things. You know, they lived in the 70s. So for me, the 70s were like really cool. And you remember how Quentin Tarantino, he would talk on that Joe Rogan podcast, I know you've seen it, but he would talk about how there was like this time with like these real movies going on in the 70s before
Absolutely.
the 80s, when like the conservatives were really trying to shut everything down and you can't say this and you can't say that. And he said what ended up happening in the 90s is we kind of had the 70s all over again.
Yeah.
And that idea has stuck in my head. And I started thinking, I'm like, okay, if I was born in 83, that's only 3 years from 1979. 1979 is when The Wall came out. That's when, Zeppelin was still touring in 1979. 4 years is not a lot of time. And my parents, who grew up 60s and 70s, they saw all that going on. I mean, can we agree that the 70s, I would say 68 to about 79 is what I would honestly say. That was one of the coolest times. I mean, you got all the war and everything going on, but as far as art, it's one of the best times in America, period.
Of course.
And I don't think anybody would deny that. Movies, music, I mean.
And we were coming out of the civil rights, so the direction was going correctly in the 70s. You were coming out of the civil rights movement in the 60s. The 70s is where it was really starting to take hold.
It's like people were waking up in a way.
People were waking up, and it was great, but it was still very simple.
Yes.
Life was slower still.
And I guess that's what I'm hitting at, because I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, the simplicity
of life.
So,
I miss it.
So my parents are into that. That's the way they grow up. And then my childhood.
That's a good point, man.
We had a TV, one, and it had the box on it that had like 30 channels. You walk up and you'd turn it. And you couldn't just, and me and Ashley talk about this all the time too, man. It's like, if you wanted to watch cartoons or whatever, you had to know what time it came on, and you had to be there for that time, or you didn't see cartoons. It wasn't just like,
of course,
you pull up Netflix or whatever. You could watch exactly what you want. So you didn't always get what you wanted all the time. You might hit the last 20 minutes of G.I. Joe, and you're like, man, I got to remember next Saturday.
Yeah.
But then it almost would get to a point where it's like, whatever, I don't care. And we'd be outside playing all the time.
Well, and it
was just different.
Yeah, it was different.
But
man, the A-Team, couldn't miss that.
Yeah. There was some really cool stuff. So in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I grew up a lot like the way my parents grew up, because they just kind of continued on doing that, that same simplistic life. Like, they weren't really into TV. I remember we had like a wood burning stove in our house, all of that. And then now, like, think about that in comparison to now. So getting into the music, like why I like music so much. So my dad, he always lifted weights, and he had his own weightlifting gym, home gym. It was a lot more than that, but out in his garage. And so it was like a 40 by 40. He had a workshop on one side where he welded, and then the other side was his weight room. He had these huge, like 70, actually, I thought it was his. I remember asking my mom this. It was my mom's stereo from like her teenage years or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then there was an 8-track player there, and my dad had the wall. And so I remember putting on the wall on 8-track on this thing, and I couldn't have been 10 years old. You know, you're talking like 93, I'm playing an 8-track.
Yeah.
And I put this, and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it then, but thinking about it now, I feel like I was hearing real music then. I was like, all the analog was still going on. The digital stuff hadn't happened yet. Like, it hadn't really switched over that way. So through the 80s into the early 90s, I'm hearing the real music. And I showed you, like, before this podcast, I played a remastered Pink Floyd The Wall, one of the new reissues for Wylie. I played Hey You, and then I played a 1979, and it's not even really that good of a pressing. Like, you heard the pops. I have a better copy coming because it just blew my mind. But I had this 1979 original press of The Wall, and the detail of the instruments and the keys and the bass and the guitar, it's unbelievable. And that was actually that moment when I heard that, I was like, well, I'm going to check out this new one. I'm going to see if it sounds just as good. And it didn't. And it's not always that way. Like, not all, just because it's an original press doesn't mean it's perfect. And just because it's a remaster doesn't mean it's bad. And I explained all that earlier. But I was sitting there and I was thinking, maybe the reason why I love music so much is because I heard it for what it is. It's like why when you go to a live show, it just feels different than a record. And you even made the statement when we were listening to it. You were like, the only thing between us and hearing Pink Floyd as they were recording that on that original record right there is a microphone. Yeah. And it was that good.
Yeah, and then the digitally remastered is three or four copies after.
Who knows? And there are remasters. I don't want to totally crap on that, but there are remasters that are better. And there are remasters that are from analog tapes and that are good and sourced from a good quality source. But there's others that I've heard, and some of them are obviously bad, that it's like they took the CD master and just put it on a metal plate and pressed it. And that's the most disgusting thing to find. There's not many of those that I've found, but there's a couple that are just that bad.
Well, I would, for those that don't know, you listen to Craig a little bit more and you spend time with him, you know that he's not a music snob. There's a big difference. I would consider you a student of music, honestly.
I try to be.
Like, you really know what you're talking about. So also along those lines is, for instance, like Led Zeppelin. Okay, I don't know what song it is, but I bet you do. They played drums in a stairwell and recorded it because it sounded more acoustic.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. Now I can't think of the name of that song. It's When the Levee Breaks, I think.
I think you're right. So
it may not have just been that song. They may have recorded that entire record there.
Yeah. He got, there was more of an echo. There was more of a...
Is that mic messing you up?
No.
Is it tight?
It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the Foo Fighters just record. It's either inspired by that, or the Foo Fighters just recorded in that same place. I think a couple of people have went back and recorded in that same house. It was a house.
Yeah.
Neil Young Lanois, him and Daniel Lanois, he's a producer. That Neil Young record where it's just Neil solo playing electric and everything. They did some stuff there.
That's an example of what I'm talking about you being a student of music.
You almost said snob. You were like, that's what I meant by you being a snob.
See what I mean? I never would have known that. You just explained it.
It might not even be right, though.
I think it wrong. Is.
Yeah, but I know what you mean. What were you going to say about it?
Well, here's what I was going to say about it was that sound, and especially on an original record, it would sound different than what you hear on the radio.
For sure.
Because it's exactly what you're talking about. You could probably hear that a lot better on an original record than you can some sort of digital little things like that.
I'm curious though how good the radio used to sound like pre-digital age. Like I'm wondering, because my dad, he had a 81 Chevrolet, still does, and he used to paint houses. And so I would spend my entire summers working with him. And he had like a setup in his truck. Like he had put in some 6x9s or whatever. And I don't know. I'm really not into the equipment side of music. I'm really not. So I don't really know what I'm talking about on equipment. But he had an amp under the seat and he had some nice speakers in his doors and behind the seat. And then he had a nice, it was not a factory stereo. And that thing used to thump.
Yeah.
And I can remember, you know, Bad Company or something coming on, and he'd just crank it up and just kind of look over at me. And I really do think that's the source of music is from, I got it from, I inherited it.
Easily.
But I think I was hearing it in my soul, man. I think when I've listened to records on my stereo now, and it really sounds perfect, where, you know, it's a good pressing, all of that. It's a good recording. And then I'm listening to it on a good stereo. I mean, my hair stands up on my arms, and it's like, not only am I hearing it, I'm feeling it.
Yeah.
And those keys that I was showing you on Hey You at the very end, I mean, it's like piercing through your body. It's so perfect. But then you listen to the remastered, and it's not that at all. It's just kind of flat and in the background, and it's not full.
I wish I could feel music. I feel it sometimes, but I wish I could feel it like that. I know exactly what you mean when you're talking about
it. Dude, and Neil Young has been preaching this for years, saying that you're not getting all music now. Like, I honestly wonder whether...
What do you mean by that?
Well, exactly what we're saying. So, like, if you take this recording and then, okay, here's the full analog recording. Well, that's a lot of information. Well, now we got to stream this off Spotify. So it's like, hey, man, we're going to need a smaller file. And everything for years going through the 90s is, how do we get this smaller? So from records to 8 tracks to cassettes to CDs to now you can carry around your entire, like, now you can carry around 100,000 songs on a computer.
Yep.
And then look at that compared to this. So it's a space thing, you know, and ultimately when you get down to it, you want to enjoy the music. It's like a movie. You could watch a movie on your phone and love it, or you could really have an experience with a full setup and like really enjoy it. But you enjoyed the movie either way. So I think baseline right there, I would just say, I hope people just enjoy music, period.
For sure.
You know, and you don't have to have a full blown, you know, analog setup to enjoy music. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if you really want to hear every last detail, it's the same as like if you're watching a movie on your phone. Like, if you want to hear every last detail, you put it on this system with a good pressing, you're going to hear it.
Is that nature or nurture to find that ability to listen to it that way?
Well, first of all, I don't think people can just sit. Most people don't have the attention span to sit down for very long. Usually music for people is a background thing. You know, like you're doing something else.
Yeah,
you're washing your car, you're listening to music.
Yep.
You know, in my case with my dad, we're driving around, we're painting houses when in my teenage years, listening to music. But that's also not a bad way to listen to music. What I found, though, is that it is enjoyable for me to sit down and listen through the album. Like, I don't just sit there and fall asleep listening to it. But I haven't always had that ability either, though. I can remember when I would listen to music as a kid. You know, you'd put your CD in your Walkman, you'd listen to 1 or 2 songs on that CD that you liked, you'd take it out and you'd go to the next CD. Like, I haven't always enjoyed listening cover to cover of music. But I don't know, I have different ways I listen now too, though.
I wonder, though, maybe you could speak intelligently on this. I've wondered this, is that, yes, a lot of what we're exposed to in our childhood doesn't necessarily dictate our adulthood or what our interests are, but it plays a part.
I think so.
Just in the same way that
it at least shows you possibilities.
Yeah, and just in the same way that someone has an abusive, terrible childhood, it affects them later on. We all know that. They get into the court systems or whatever, or just aggressive personalities, that sort of thing. So yeah, it shapes us, and it's good examples to us or bad examples. But I wonder if that's the same for music. And it is that way for athletics. You have like Venus and her sister.
Yeah.
Their dad was really hard on them about playing tennis, but obviously that paid off. I wonder,
mean, Michael Jackson's dad beat him if he didn't do the dances right.
I was just about to say,
and
I wonder.
Still danced.
I mean, if you really asked Venus a real question, and I don't know, maybe she had a great childhood, but you know, her dad was aggressive about teaching them and wouldn't let them. I mean, there was a lot of sacrifice as children that they made in order to be as great as they are. People don't realize that. They're not like just natural born tennis players. They worked incredibly long hours and hard work to get where they are.
I get what you're saying now.
So
you're asking
I wonder
me
if it's the
I've
same
just
with
nurtured
music.
This love.
I wonder if you were just exposed, if it is that you were exposed to music constantly and something happened? Or were you born in a sense, like maybe the reason why your dad listened to music so much was he had the same trait?
You know, I've wondered that too, because here we are, Middle Tennessee. My dad was from Middle Tennessee. His dad was from Middle Tennessee. His granddad, as far as I know, was from Middle Tennessee. I mean, we're right here where music is
music
just
capital,
I mean,
yeah, for sure.
It's flowing right out of the city,
all
literally,
the time. Yeah.
and has been for a long time. So, yeah, I mean, maybe if you were, I'm trying to think of another example of another city. You know, maybe it'd be like being into barbecue and being from like Austin or Houston or Dallas or something.
Memphis.
Yeah, Memphis. Like that's just what you're into. You go to the Memphis barbecue festival, and that's what you do. You make you turn. Man, I turned 27. Man, I got this job. I'm gonna make me a barbecue trailer and a pit, and that's why I'm gonna start doing that. Yeah, probably. There's probably something to that. But I mean, to me, I understand and realize, dude, it's a trip to me too, thinking about how many records my wife and I pack up and sell out of our garage. It is an absolute trip to me, thinking about the fact that like here my ancestors are 2 generations ago, dirt farmers or whatever. 3 generations ago, were dirt farmers.
How do you dirt farm?
You take a shovel,
sell dirt,
you dig, and you put some stuff in the dirt, and it grows. And
yeah,
then
but that's
farm.
a farmer of something like corn farmer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would be saying dirt farmer as opposed to like.
I mean, I can grow
corporate agricultural building farmer. I don't know.
grow dirt.
Like no, I'm saying that they planted plants in the dirt.
Got it.
Dug it up with their own hands or tractors or mules or whatever. Like they were farmers.
We like to clarify things on the show, so here we go.
But yeah, so 3 generations ago. But I think it would be a trip to them if they could see me now. Here I am outside of Nashville, and we're selling records every day of the week. Just selling music, making music, helping support my family with music.
I think there's a difference, and I got to put this out there. I'm not disagreeing with you. I just want to add something. It seems like a student of music in that creative side, and being able to listen to something and translate it in a way. That's what you're doing. You realize that. That's the music snob puts their music in order and they go see all the concerts, and then they're critical because this bass player isn't like the other bass player. I don't know.
Dude, I've done that though. I mean,
I know. I mean, you can be
I'm
critical. Anybody can be critical. What I'm getting at is what you can do is you can listen to a song and you can say, do you hear this? Now listen to this. Do you hear that pitch difference? Never in a million years would I have ever listened or paid attention to that difference. But it's noticeable. But it takes somebody like you or Jeff Boggs. I consider him a student of music as well. It's guys like you who can do that. You can teach people how to listen to something. Here's the problem though. I don't think that you're taught that. I think that you're naturally gravitating to that. Like it's something that you
just keep nurturing it.
It's something that's in your DNA. Just like in my DNA, physically I'm able to pick things up and move them around. There's just people like Jeff Boggs.
What you guys, what he's saying, if you're listening on Spotify, he's huge. Wylie's ginormous.
No, what I mean is like,
yeah, like you're predisposed to being big and strong.
Same thing.
But
you've
nurtured that by going to the gym for years and years and years. You've put the time in. You've studied. Okay, if I want to be big, what do I got to do to be big? If I want my bench to be bigger, if I want my squat to be bigger, my deadlift, you've put in the time. You don't just, hey, I'm predisposed to being big, and then you're just big. I get exactly what you're saying. And I agree.
So I wonder if it's the same for the arts. I wonder if it's the same for the music, because it seems like that creative endeavor, whatever it is. Prince, as a good example, yes, he had to learn how to play the piano and the guitar and all that. But let's face it.
He play like 15 instruments or something crazy.
But that's my point.
Yeah, like you don't just wake up
natural to him.
Yeah.
So
you still have to nurture it.
You still have to nurture it. You still got to practice.
Like if he had just went and smoked crack, he's not going to be Prince.
I'm sure that he had to practice, but it came very, very easy to him.
Yeah, we on the fly. Keep going.
So is that... Oh, I didn't even notice. So I wonder if that's a trait that we're just born with.
I mean, I definitely think you have talents that you're born with that
non-physical is what I mean.
Or maybe you're predisposed to like my wife. She can cook, but she can cook better now than she could when we first got married.
That's actually a really good point. That certain ingredients, it's an art form that she's able to notice certain ingredients, and it makes sense to her to put certain ingredients together at certain amounts and cook a certain amount. And it would never occur to me to do. And that's a good example too.
You know, when I learned how good my wife actually was at cooking, like, I mean, obviously you can taste it and it's good. So I don't remember whether it was our third kid or our fourth kid, but I was taking care of the other kids while she was in the hospital. I think it was the fourth one. No, it was the third one, because I've known this for a while. And she's like, hey, I left a couple recipes. I bought some stuff. Just make it. And I'm sitting there and I'm making the recipes and I'm like, we don't have this. So I'd text her and she's like, oh yeah, I normally, and it's in her head. She doesn't even look at the recipes.
Yeah.
She just has such a feel for it at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And she really is good. Like beyond just normal being able to warm up food, she really is a good cook. And I try to encourage her about that too, because I see, like you're saying, I agree with exactly what you're saying, that she's predisposed to being really good at cooking.
Yes.
I need to encourage. I think there's a lesson in that too, from a parenting aspect. And like looking back at what I was saying earlier about my grandmother and the magic, it's like if you see your kid, like I have one of my kids that's insanely athletic, just natural athleticism, and you can just see it.
Mm-hmm.
She learns things really easy physically. Her body is just like, it's just different. She's like a little ninja. And you want to encourage that. Like, hey man, look, you have this little natural talent. And then I have another one that's like super smart and just retains everything. And I don't know, man, every kid is different. And I definitely think when you see something in them, you want to nurture that.
You know what I noticed about the first one you're talking about?
What's that?
She's the second to the youngest, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, the second one.
Of the girls.
Yes.
Okay, so she's the middle.
She's the middle girl, yeah.
Okay, so, and I hate to use people's names. My wife, by the way, for anybody that's listening or for the new, it's kind of a standard practice. When I mention my wife, I usually say my wife, but Angie doesn't mind me using her name. There's
Cool.
certain people. But anyway, you know what else I noticed about her? She's not going to be taken for a fool.
No.
She's
It's funny you notice that.
She's quick.
Yeah.
She's quick, and she'll call you out. That's not true. You know, you could just, even if she knows that it's a joke,
yeah.
hold on.
It's really wild to see. She's very protective of my wife too.
Really?
Yeah. Like if I'm trying to think of a really good example, but if something is going on, like let's say my wife is cooking and the baby's screaming or whatever.
She'll just jump in there.
Yeah, she'll help her. Like she'll pick them up and, oh, you're okay. Like she's very motherly in that way. And my other girls are too, but it's just, it's very different to see how they all behave differently.
Yeah.
You know, like one of them kind of mothers all of them. And then her in particular, she's very protective of like my wife. I don't know what that is, man. I don't know what, yeah.
It's a good example though. I mean, we're all different. Raised in the same house and all different personalities.
Yeah, for sure.
But, you know, what you were talking about back on that one was just your love for music and how all that started, man. Really? I mean, ultimately, there's no telling, but I think that your early exposure to music,
I think so
real
too.
Music, was what did it.
Yeah, it's really wild when you think about it from that perspective you just said too, where if you're exposed to something as a like let's take that back to where all I said is that I listened to some music in the truck with my dad. My parents would play music, and I didn't say they played me music at the garage where my dad's lifting weights. I said I went out there, grabbed it, put it in, and listened to it myself. I discovered that way.
Your own, yeah, even better.
And it completed the loop.
You discovered
it's like,
it.
I really do like when my parents are playing music in the car. Yeah, this is cool. I like this song. Mom, play that song again. Like, your kids are that way. Everybody likes music. But what I'm saying is it's almost like a religious experience that way for me now, where it's like I cannot imagine my life without music and talking about music. And I have a really good example of this too, man, kind of leading into this Gen X stuff. So there's something very physical about the arts, right? Like if you go look at a painting, you're looking at a painting. If you're reading somebody's book and they're writing, this is coming out of their head. If you're listening to music, I mean, just watch a Netflix documentary and think about how much goes into this. Like these are ideas and licks, and a guy sitting in his room practicing his guitar for years and years and years. And then he comes up with, you know, I don't want to say Led Zeppelin, man, because I'm pretty sure they ripped all their stuff off. But like,
really,
yeah, there's a lot of it, bro. It's pretty bad. What's a whole.
What's the one that you like that sounds like them? No offense.
The one that's like that's ripping them off. That's pretty funny, isn't it? Like there's a band who's becoming popular for ripping off a band that like is famous now for like ripping everybody off. I don't know, man. I see it two different ways, and I'll touch on that really quick because I don't necessarily hate Led Zeppelin for that. Like I still like Led Zeppelin. I still like those songs. It's American culture, or it's not just American culture, but it's music culture. But for us, it's a big part of our society. Everybody knows who Led Zeppelin is.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And but I don't know, man. I don't know what I was saying. But there's other bands that I think are better. There's other bands that I think have better songs, better licks, but they don't play them on the radio. So it's like, you know, the exposure to some of this stuff is what I question. And bro, I made this list. It's really cool. It's called Underground Classic Rock. It's probably a terrible title, but I've been doing this. It's just an experiment just for me. And there's another buddy of mine that was on episode 1, Matt Perry. Me and him toss music back and forth all the time. And so I said, here's the rules. Let's make a playlist. You can add anything to it. Any band that was on classic rock radio is automatically in. They're like an accepted band. But you can't add any of the hits that we know. So like only deep tracks. If people from that band went to another band that's not known, like that, those are all automatically able to be there.
Yeah.
So it was like we made this alternate reality of the classic rock world and started throwing all these songs on there that were not hits, but were maybe like deep tracks, B-sides, other bands that should have gotten attention.
But all of that's part of the evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's like you were saying, man, I don't know who these gatekeepers were back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s that decided what bands got on classic rock or not. But one of the biggest like cornerstones of my argument and my thought process on that is the Black Crowes being played on classic rock radio, but they didn't release their records till the early 90s. Tom Petty was the same way. He had songs that, like, as a kid, you'd think came out in the 70s, but man, he was releasing a lot of those records early 90s.
Yeah.
So why did they get on there, but things like Stone Temple Pilots and all that didn't? Oasis didn't. And so I've always kind of had that question in my head, like, who decides? Who decided that this band gets to be on there and this band doesn't? Because that sucks. And this deep track that I'm listening to over here is insane. So I've always thought like that.
Exactly what you're saying. I follow it, yeah.
And it's not in some kind of snobby, like, ooh, I'm looking for these deep tracks. It's like, no, legitimately, that song that they play on the radio is awful. I'll give you a really good example, Nazareth. You know that song, Love Hurts? Like, it's okay song, bro. It's all right.
No, it isn't. That's a good example.
And then they have that Hair of the Dog song. Now you're messing with a bitch.
Yeah.
Son of a bitch. I'm not going to cuss on my podcast, but you know the song. But
it's catchy.
The rest of that record, Hair of the Dog, came out in like 1975. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like some of the best hard rock you've ever heard. But you got to think too, man, there were some of these bands like them, probably particularly, that were hard, heavier. They liked Sabbath. They liked this other stuff. And I'm just guessing from, listening. But the record companies would have man, we need a hit, man. We need something that can be played on the radio, man. Come on, we need a hit played on the radio. Do you know how many records I've listened to? And you're like listening through, and then you get to the one hit, and then you listen to the rest of the record, and you're like, bro, that doesn't fit at all. Like, it doesn't fit at all. Why did they do that? And they were like trying to put some of these people in a box. Like, hey, man, we want you to sound like this.
You know what it is? It seems like in the 80s, at least, that all the gatekeepers, which were probably 6 or 7, wanted to hear catchy themes. And that's all it was. It wasn't even about the quality of the music. That's why you can come away with listening to the 80s and it's all I think there's a fondness for the 80s just because of the nostalgia. I don't think there was anything. This is just my opinion. It's going to upset a lot of people, but fine, whatever. I think that there were a lot of really good 80s movies. Really good. But 80s music was garbage.
I'm a 80s music is garbage person too. I have a buddy of mine that would argue that would say that.
But it was necessary. Sorry to interrupt. I think that the 80s was necessary because of the technology that it brought. We progressed in the music world in the 80s decade because of all the technology that was happening. They couldn't help but use digital everything and synthesizing sounds, that it became more of a production and quantity versus quality.
Bro, me, you, and my buddy Matt Perry need to have that discussion on the 80s. Because, he has this... Matt Perry, episode 1. Yeah.
I know, but think about that. The 80s, we're just talking about Matt Perry, right?
Perry.
What was that?
Friends?
90210? Was that his name?
Yeah, something like
Matthew
that.
Perry, right?
The actor?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's
I bet my buddy's never heard that before.
Yeah.
You should crack that joke on him.
The 80s. I hope he's a fan.
Well, there was some music in the 80s that I think is legit. For real. Like, you got Metallica.
Example. Okay, Metallica.
Master Puppets, And Justice for All, Kill 'Em All, Ride the Lightning. There's some stuff. But then, bro, there's a lot of that, like, mainstream heavy metal, if you want to call it heavy metal. That's not good, bro. Like, there's a lot of that, like, Great White, Winger. I got a buddy of mine that is, like...
They were just a different type of boy band that was created, you know, in a music lab.
And so I don't want to totally crap on this man because I know people have a lot, like, people have memories tied to stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like maybe you and your girlfriend are hooking up and y'all used to go see Rat all the time. I don't know. Like, I'm not hating on it. I used to like Creed. Like, I get it. I get having a band that looking back now is kind of like, ooh.
I'm not hating it either.
But, you know, if the music sounds good, listen to it. That's what I say.
Absolutely.
If you like it and it sounds good, listen to it. But if we're categorizing the stuff, what I'm arguing is that there's a whole lot of classic rock that everybody knows and that it's good, and it's literally this thin sheet of ice that is over just this ocean of material. It, almost to the point, bro, that it baffles me that I know they have like the Sirius XM vinyl tracks, deep tracks, whatever. Bro, they're not going deep. They're not going that deep. I could list off like 5 bands, man, that Small Faces, Doug Somm, his other band, Sir Douglas Quintet, Tommy James and the Shondells.
Never heard of any of that.
The Everly Brothers.
Everly
Brothers, who are known for like the 50s type stuff.
Yeah.
They have 2 records that came out like 71, 72 that are some of the coolest Americana kind of new riders of the Purple Sage kind of. No, not at all. Like they did before. That's what they were known for. But later on in their career, what I'm talking about, man, they have 2 records that are just killer. They're just Americana kind of country rock records.
I love these conversations, by the way.
Oh, me too.
You think about how many people in your circle that you can have that conversation with, and it would make sense. Okay, so with the X generation, did we have any good quality come out of that?
Man, here's what I think about Generation X.
There was a couple revolutions that happened. Sorry to interrupt.
No. And I think this all ties in too, man, because I am technically a millennial, right? If I was born in 83.
Barely, man.
And see, I don't identify. What do I have in common with somebody that's born in 90, bro? I'm like at the very front. I hold on to that 83 with everything I have too.
Yeah.
You know, I was born on the last day of the year. So technically, I was only in 83 for a couple of hours.
I don't think so.
I was in 83. Mm-hmm. And that's close enough to 1979 for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So like my brother, he's older than me. So he's Gen X. I always felt like, I mean, even like me and you, you're a little older than me, but me and you jive. I've always been that way. Mm-hmm. Guys just a tad older than me, guys like right at my age, that just, I'd find them super interesting. And I think a lot of it, bro, has to do with the stuff we're saying. Like there was a generation before, after the boomers. I have a lot of beefs with baby boomers, but you have this really cool.
Really?
I do. I don't want to talk about that right now, but
okay.
I mean, they're cool in certain ways, but they're like emphasis on baby, not boomer, right? Let's leave it at that.
Okay.
We'll talk about it later. But there's this Gen X generation who they get to see all this cool music. You know, they're growing up around all this cool stuff, the same as what I'm saying. You're hearing it. These bands are still touring. And I'm talking about it from a musical perspective, but there's other pieces to it too. It's not so focused on TV. Internet hasn't come around yet. I mean, believe it or not, there was a time when people could just like do stuff and knew how to do a lot of different stuff. I mean, I guess sometimes you'd call him like a Renaissance man or something, you know, and I like that. I'm like wanting to try everything, where now, man, you can just dial up a video and just watch it. Bro,
I still go to Goodwill and buy DVDs.
That's awesome.
Speaking of which, I found an original Blues Brothers at a Goodwill the other day, a VHS. The VHS. But
don't you think there's something to what you're saying right now? Like going, looking through something. I mean, it's not just music. It could be comics. It could be VHS. Bro, I think the VHS tape thing is so cool.
It is.
I just don't need another hobby.
I just think it's the last one, honestly. I think it's the last one. You know, CDs, maybe. I think maybe
CDs will come around. Well, I mean, people we still sell them. I mean,
we do.
Yes and no. So
I haven't been in a store looking for them in a while.
Well, I still sell them sometimes.
Okay. Well,
and then they make high def.
They're reproductions, though, right? They're not.
Well, I mean, when
just
bands
released.
No, bands put out CDs now.
Do they?
I don't know who buys them. I mean, like
before
usually
that it was cassettes.
Usually, if a band is releasing, like let's say somebody has a new record coming out, they're gonna do. Bro, my underwear's shown, bro. You can't show underwear on.
That's awesome.
Hey, if you're watching on Spotify, you just missed my underwear.
They missed out.
You're not watching. You're listening on Spotify. That's what I meant to say.
Sure.
We're not Joe Rogan or anything.
Nah.
So, I think that physically going into a store and looking through something, I can't tell you how many times when I used to go to like Grammys or whatever and look through records, that I would end up leaving with some record that I'd never even heard of before. You just look through and you're like, oh, this is cool, man. Like that cover is awesome. And then you ask, and it's all like, I'm just going to use this. It's all like analog life. It's like physical you to me. And I got a really good example of this too, man.
That's a great way to put it.
There's a guy, he's my instructor over at jiu-jitsu. One of really cool guy, man. And he's an X-ray tech. And we were talking about music, and he just sends me a text and was like, man, after our conversation, I forgot how much I liked. And he sent me this clip of Jerry Cantrell from Alice in Chains. And that was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Not only have I listened to that record that he mentioned to me like 3 or 4 times since, like me reminding him reminded me, it went full circle. It like reminded me how much I liked it. And then I've been like I've listened to it like 3 or 4 times since. And it was because it was person to person. It was like, hey man, I really like this thing. And it's like, okay, I like him. He's cool. Yeah, I like Jerry Cantrell. And it made it this real thing. Versus like if the algorithm, you're flicking through Instagram or something, and all of a sudden it was like, hey, Jerry Cantrell. Like that's not real.
Right.
But when somebody else that you know and respect sees that, and then like you have this interaction, it creates this real thought in your head. And so it goes back to me saying why I liked music.
I follow exactly what you mean.
Like I'm getting this connection to music from my parents who got it from there. It's like it is an inherited thing, like you were saying.
Very well put.
But you can turn, like there's something really cool about liking something and then turning someone on to it that you really like. Like I could be so excited about Pink Floyd and I'm like, bro, I like Wylie, man. Like you don't think about all this, you just do it. You're just like, bro, you like Pink Floyd? And like really what you're saying is bro, I like Pink Floyd so much, and you're like really cool, and I just really want to tell you about it.
This might be a big impression to you, but I heard that song probably 30,000 times in my life, just on the radio or whatever. But this was the first time I listened to it.
Bro, you know how many
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely.
You
you know how many times I've done that
I
I'm like,
notice.
Bro, I've never heard that. Like you almost start to, like when I've started listening to a lot, like I have Japanese pressings and some other stuff. When you start listening to music in that way, it starts to occur to me that like, man, this might really be the first time that I've sat down and just listened to all of what they were trying to, and it's beautiful. Especially with people like Pink Floyd, man, they were so attentive to what they were doing. I don't know. But it's like the Quentin Tarantino movie, man. You messaged me last night. You're like, bro, I forgot how good Reservoir Dogs is.
Forgot. So good. I saw it last night by myself in the fire station. And again, from Goodwill, found it. I love going to Goodwill.
Killer, man.
I love getting
You got it on
movies.
DVD or what?
Yeah, DVD. Just
You pull it out of the case?
Pull it out
in.
of the case. You go over to the thing, and you put that thing in that thing, and you got a movie. And then you go sit back down. Probably you made some popcorn or you got some water or something, I don't know, and you're watching this movie. We're doomed if we let that go.
I think so.
We're doomed.
Well, like, and really what I'm arguing, like the reason I kind of wanted to frame it up in this way too, man, is like, I'm really starting to see a glimpse of, hey man, like I watched The Matrix with my kids. I showed my 2 oldest girls The Matrix. And you start to realize that maybe we don't figuratively live in the Matrix, like we're not connected up in these little pods. But could we be so dependent on computers and phone? I mean, I've sat here and I can't keep my hand off of it. Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm so, like this is your life if you let it be your life. The TV, the computers, the phones and all that. But it didn't used to be that way. And I think that's what Gen X was, is like, hey, it's like the last generation before we plugged in. And then once we got plugged in, and it happens with everything, man. It's not necessarily a negative thing. It's just the way our society
It's not
works.
a negative thing. I'm not knocking it.
But all the advertising and the dollars, like, bro, think about how you used to be able to watch YouTube and you didn't get hit with ads every 5 seconds. Bro, if I'm watching a video on YouTube, a music video or a concert or something, it is so irritating for all of a sudden just, boom, here's an advertisement right at the... And everything is like that. There is not one thing, not Joe Rogan, anybody. Like, even he does it now where it used to be all his advertisements were at the beginning of his show. But now there'll be like some super cliffhanger thing, like where Quentin Tarantino is about to talk about Harvey Weinstein or something. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, boom, ad.
Yeah.
Everybody does it. And it's disgusting. And I get it. Because
they got to pay the bills.
Yeah, I know. But you're trying to maximize all this stuff. But it's like nothing is sacred anymore.
I'm glad you put it that way, and I'm going to add to it.
Go ahead.
All right.
Got plenty of incense left on that stick for this. Go.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go a little bit deeper. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that this is the last. The reason why I want to hold on to it so much is we're into a zero value. There's no value. Here's what I mean by that.
When you say no value, do you mean like?
Well, let me throw this at you. See what you think. Maybe it's not even the right words for it, but there's an effort to watch that movie. There's an effort to listen to that record. You had to go buy it. You had to wait for it to get shipped to your house. You had to pull it out of the thing. You had to put it on the record player. I watched you get really close with that. What is it called?
Needle.
The style, whatever.
Stylus.
Yeah, the stylus. Just. This is where I want the song. I think it's right. Here.
Bang.
Right.
Yeah.
We did that. That's the way we did it. You know, if we wanted to hear a song, and then you can't. You can't double click or. I don't know. I think that there's more of a value.
It takes it out of context. So when you, like, I'm gonna let you keep going, but like when you have The Wall on Spotify and you can pick any track you want, it takes it out of context. The Wall is 4 sides.
Of course.
And those 4 sides have a start and a finish. But then the radio took it out of context when they started playing the hits. And that's just the way it is because you're trying to sell records.
You got to, pay the bills.
And they're trying to sell ads. But yeah,
You're devaluing it when
correct.
you make it so accessible and easy.
It'd be like taking Quentin Tarantino's movies and making like 5-minute edits out of them.
For the same reason.
Just to get the story across. Like, here's what happens.
Absolutely. So for the same reason in music, back up even further, Madonna, she doesn't play any of her 80s stuff. She's got a bunch of 40 and 50-year-old women that go to her concerts and she don't even play the 80s. That's what they're there to hear her. She's lost a big fan base because of that. Now she's this weird thing. You know what I mean?
Dude, that's a really good, finish your thought, but that's a really good segue into that last piece about
of course.
gatekeepers.
Yeah, gatekeepers for sure.
Because I think that's kind of a shame. Like Neil Young it would be a really good example of someone who, bro, if I went to his show, if I went to a Neil Young show and he played 20 songs and I'd never heard any of them, they were all just, hey, I wrote these 20 songs last week or during the pandemic. Nobody's ever heard these. I'm going to play these. His fans would love it. Now, not everybody's fans would love that.
Yeah.
Like people who go see Madonna, they're just wanting a party. Hey, man, we used to be into Madonna. You remember when we would wear the little skirts and we'd get drunk on
little
Pabst
too
Blue Ribbon
serious.
or whatever.
It's gotten a little too serious for herself.
But like if all of a sudden she just changed and learned how to play acoustic guitar and just showed up to the Ryman and was going to play some new songs, people would not like that. And so I think that's kind of a shame too. Like let the artist be an artist.
Let an artist be an artist, sure, but understand too that you're Madonna because you were Madonna in '84. That you were Madonna in '84 as well.
I mean, I don't think there's too many people that want to see her naked now, though. You know,
not naked, but they want to hear.
If she puts out another book of her being naked now, it ain't gonna sell.
Yeah, and what was his name? The basketball player, Dennis Rodman. He's naked with her. Probably nobody wants to see that now, but
no.
So getting back to it, there's a devaluing that's going on, and I can prove it in a sense too with movies that everything is CGI. The generation that's into movies now, they're watching movies. It's so commercialized and just so fake and just whatever. That translates as well as in music.
What would be an example of that?
In music or movies?
No, in movies that you feel like it's just like, I have one in my head and it would step on a lot of toes, but I watched the Endgame.
Yeah.
And I was just like...
The Marvel comics. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. I mean, I know there's some people that are really into it, and I'm not knocking it. And for some people, if you've been into Marvel comics your whole life, now all of a sudden we have the ability... I think it's cool that we have the ability to do all this stuff.
Well, and it may break their hearts to hear this, but... they got into the Marvel comics, at least in the early days, people got into the Marvel comics because it was a cartoon. It wasn't escape. It was just entertainment, and that's fine. You didn't look for the quality of the story. It was meant to be a fantasy and escape. So on one hand, the movies just reflect that. It's just entertainment. It's supposed to be a cartoon. So they use CGI. What I think is beyond ridiculous is that it wins awards and people take it serious, like it's some sort of cinematic thing, which it's a cinematic experience in the sense that it's entertaining. But even in movies, all types of movies these days, they're using CGI for all these lazy scenes. I don't know. If you listen to what's his name? He did The Office. I'm just drawing a blank all day today. Ricky Gervais. If you listen to anything that he talks about, he's a really good movie critic, and that's the reason that he hosted the awards and he called everybody out.
Dude, I see that different now.
He's so true.
He's true.
He's so right. I mean,
Bill Burr, bro, he has the best take on what happened with all that. He's like, look, dude, he's like, you're talking about a guy who's in movies. And if he really wants to crap on all these celebrities, A, why is he there? B, he's wearing a tux. Like, it is a show, too. Like, he wrote those jokes knowing, and he may not have even wrote those jokes. He may have had writers help him write those jokes. I don't know. But Bill Burr has a real good clip you should look up where he kind of burns on Ricky Gervais for that.
Well, but the difference that I see, because I've followed Ricky Gervais for a long time.
He is funny, though. Don't get me wrong.
He's very
like
funny.
Him. Go ahead.
He's very funny, but... I follow him along and said, man, that dude doesn't take himself serious. At least he doesn't seem to. And that's the point that he's making. The point that he's making is that, he's not going to get up on a podium, and he doesn't use his career as a podium for justice warrior stuff. That's what he's getting at. Yeah. He's saying you're just actors. You're not in a position to lecture anyone. And he's right. That's why you'll never hear him talk about that stuff. And that's one of the reasons I like him so much. But you have people like Tom Hanks and whoever else. I mean, it's free country, do what you want. But man, just make some movies. I don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's you change.
I go back and forth on that, man, because I definitely think that if in an artist's head they feel like they're trying to make the world a better place and they have a platform to do that, maybe they should do it. But it could be misguided.
It's so misguided.
And it could be...
And it's short-sighted. That's the problem.
I think a lot of people, bro, feel like they want to jump on something because it's popular at the time, whether that's...
And that's entertainment.
Wokeism or parental advisories back in the 90s. And
dude,
I don't know,
it
man.
ran rampant back then. You remember Tipper Gore?
Oh my gosh,
who was after...
That stuff makes me sick at my stomach. It's the same thing, man. I don't care what anybody says. I'd argue with anybody in the world about this. All this woke, cancel culture, everything. This is just the pendulum swinging back the other way from that crap Tipper Gore and all them were doing in the 90s. Mm-hmm. The only thing that they did is put a little thing in the bottom of a corner of an album that says it's got cuss words and let you know that album's cool. That's all they did.
Yeah, it's true. Weren't they after
Stupid.
Twisted Sister at the time? Wasn't that one of them?
Think about how stupid this is real quick.
Do you remember Twisted Sister?
Yeah. Think about how stupid this is, bro. The parents at that time were so uninvolved. Look at the Home Alone movies and all that. Sure. They're so uninvolved and they're so absorbed with their careers and everything else that they thought it would be a good idea to help parents parent their kids because they don't have time to sit down and listen to albums with them anymore and actually know what the freak's going on.
That's a really good quote.
Hey, they didn't have that in the 70s, really, man. Black Sabbath still sold records and they're talking about things of the occult, bro, and they're not putting advisories on that. But parents are so uninvolved with their kids at this point that they're trying to put something on there to let you know as a parent that, hey, this has cuss words or might be. And it was very targeted towards a lot of people too, like Marilyn Manson, and they were specific people they were going after. Yeah. I mean, it's hit a lot of people over the years, and they would try to cancel these artists because they did this thing. And now what's the black guy that's a rapper that
Lawrence Fishburne.
Him. He's DJ Fishburne. The guy who like dressed up like the devil not too long ago, and he got like 2 billion views on YouTube.
I don't know. The devil.
He's the guy that did that song with Billy Ray Cyrus.
Oh.
Hey, let me look that song up.
What is his name?
Rip on technology and then use it, bro. That's what you do.
No, there's benefits. There's benefits.
Oh, for sure.
It's not. It's just not meant to be saturated. Is my
I think we're about to hit the cusp. I think we're about to go over the hill where you're going to have a generation, man, that's been so attached to this that it's their whole life. Then the generation after them is going to come back going, yeah, those people are stupid.
What I'm getting at is that you and I recognize it as a tool. This generation, it's part of their heart and lungs, is what I'm saying. I don't like that.
Old Town Road. What's that guy's name?
I don't know. Dude, I got to take a leak.
You want to take a break? All right. Lil Nas X. Hold up. Let's finish this right here. And we'll talk about it. And then you go pee.
All right.
Lil Nas X had a video where he like dresses up like, let me look up the song. Sorry, you probably got to pee bad, don't you?
Medium to bad.
Oh, look, I should look up like rain noises or something right now. Lil Nas X. Here we go. He has a song called, I don't know if that's at Montero. Bro, I don't know.
Is he a comedian too? Dressed up like the devil? Was that part of another song or something?
No. Dude, I'll look that up. We'll talk about it when we come back. How about that?
All right, I'll be right back.
Come back. Peace.
It's been my favorite so far.
They get better every time, bro.
They do, dude.
Just got to keep going. Yo, so I looked it up. It is Lil Nas X Montero. You know, I don't pay attention.
That's the name of a car.
Is it?
I think.
It's the name of a song, but evidently in the video, I've seen the video. He dresses up like the devil or something and like kisses some dudes. But here's what my point when I was saying that was, bro, this is no new thing. Like, there are people who create art, and then there's people who are critical of art. And sometimes, man, the people who are critical of art, they might be critical because they just can't do it themselves.
Could there be a third?
What's the third?
Potentially. That there's
somebody who appreciates it?
Well, it's the industry.
Yeah. I think
the gatekeeper.
Yeah. I do. I think that's true.
They have to be in the computation in there somewhere.
Yeah, like who are these people? I don't know someone who works at
Sony,
the record industry. Or
Capitol
works in the record industry. I don't know anybody who's like finding new bands is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and it's just like the movies, and I hate to say this, but I hate that it happened is what I'm trying to say, but the whole thing with Harvey Weinstein, in my opinion...
You hate that it happened.
Well,
is that what you're saying?
I hate that that's the way it was until he was busted.
Yeah.
God, could you imagine?
No.
You're just this woman, and sometimes it happened to dudes, but most of the time it happened to women.
What do you mean it happened to dudes? Like he did that to dudes?
Dude, he grabbed... he played for the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm drawing a blank on his freaking name. He did the Old Spice commercials.
That was him that grabbed that dude? I thought that was another dude.
It was Tony something, wasn't it?
No. You're talking about the dude that flicks his titties.
Yes, that guy.
God, what is his name?
Dude,
I'm gonna look that up. Terry Crews.
Terry Crews.
We didn't have to look it up.
Dude, he grabbed Terry Crews by his junk.
I don't think that was
at
him.
a party. Yes, it was.
You
Because
sure?
Terry Crews talked about that. Yeah, that he
Dude,
wasn't sure if whether or not he was supposed to hit him because he didn't know.
D.L. Hughley. Do you know who D.L. Hughley is? The comedian.
Yeah.
He goes, bro, that's why God gave you all them muscles, man. Them muscles are supposed to keep people from grabbing you. Like you have those muscles for a reason.
But that's a good example, though, isn't it? Sometimes
like he
things
felt like
happen,
he couldn't just knock this dude's block off for grabbing him.
Well, it was such a shock to him.
Bro, I don't know that was him that grabbed him.
It was. I've seen his interview a bunch of times. That it was such a shock to Terry Crews that it didn't seem real. Like it wasn't even real.
I know he got grabbed.
Yeah.
I didn't say that right. I know he was grabbed, groped.
Yeah.
I don't know that it was Harvey Weinstein, though.
It was Harvey Weinstein. Yeah. All right, it was Harvey Weinstein. But anyway.
Was he just doing it just to be funny? Just I'm going to grab this dude's stuff?
So that's what I mean. Like, his entire career has been involved in comedy. So
Terry Crews,
yeah. So I don't know. You could criticize that in a flash, just in a second that happened. And what are you supposed to think about it right now? What are you supposed to think about? Your initial reaction is like, dude. But you could be in the gym or be with your buddies and be with your friends, and sometimes they slap you on the butt or whatever, and as a joke. Or are you sexually offended every time?
I'm not.
So my point is,
it doesn't happen to me now, but when it did happen, I wasn't.
Right, but
you don't think about it.
But my point being that I'm sure it's confusing if something like that happens. It's never happened to me in that sort of way, but
I do know some people that something along those lines, not necessarily male or female. I'm not saying who it was or whatever, but I do know some people that stuff like that has happened.
I do too. Yeah,
and it can be traumatic. It's not cool. I mean, bro, even the hazing stuff. Like I can remember back into like 8th, 9th grade, and yeah, man. I mean, like getting beat up or like you're gonna get jumped or getting jumped into some stupid little club in like 8th grade. That actually happened to me. Hey man, you want to be in this? We're gonna start a gang. Okay, cool. What do you got to do? We're gonna jump you into it.
Yeah. So
hey bro, you are not analog. You are not Gen X unless you have been jumped into a gang.
So as an example, Harvey Weinstein was a gatekeeper in Hollywood.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of them come and go throughout the years, but not as many as there are actors. So think about this, man. Those actresses, female actors.
Bro, he's disgusting too. Can I add that in before you talk?
Yeah.
He's gross looking.
Dude, he did injections into his penis to make it bigger, as in the swell it up.
Do you think some of that
is a
into
twisted person?
Like when we look back in history at like Nero or other Roman emperors or really anybody that has some sort of perversion to their view or outlook of the world.
Well, they've already conquered everything else.
Yeah, it's almost like you're so powerful.
So it's time to start conquering people.
It's time to start grabbing people.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Or I'm so powerful. No, or maybe he just did it one time, and then nothing happened. Bro, and it was like I can do that. Nobody's gonna touch me.
We could imagine, and that's why I think honestly, in any industry, a gatekeeper is a weird place. It has to be. You got to have some weirdness about you and some.
I think it definitely warps
narcissism.
The art too. Like that's when I originally brought it up when we were talking about this before. So you have your love of movies. I have my love of music, and that's a pure thing. I feel like it is. Like I just love music, but then there's certain things that warp your view of it, or maybe pull it towards, maybe this dude's a poser, or this dude's a pervert, or what happens when you flick on a movie that's supposed to be really good and the first thing you see, produced by Harvey Weinstein? I mean, the sucky part is now there's like this asterisk next to these movies. It's
real.
like something else you have to consider when you're watching a movie that has Harvey Weinstein's name at the very beginning.
I could truly, I think that it would be easy to say, and this is probably terrible to assume this, but I think it's easy to assume, and I think history has proven that the gatekeeper, it would be a very, very rare thing to have a normal person with a loving wife or even a loving husband, if it was a female gatekeeper, that they would have no narcissism about them and would live a normal life and be kind to people. I don't think in any industry at all, if you were a gatekeeper, I don't care if it's religious broadcasting. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I think that us as biological creatures, social creatures, to be in control and to be on top is something that our DNA craves. And to be a gatekeeper, that, like what we talked about in any kind of thing, I think that it would be a narcissistic, weird place to be, particularly in music.
But I think it could be navigated.
Dude, think about how many victims there were over the years, music and movies, of I want to start it big. I came out here on my own. I have nothing. I really, really want to do this.
Yeah, come over to my apartment. Talk to me about it.
Exactly. Meet me at this hotel.
Yeah, let's go. You want some drink? Hey, drink that wine.
How far are you willing to go with this thing? Because I'm willing to go all the way right now and put you in this movie. I'm willing to go all the way right now and give you backup vocals on this band. I'm putting this band together.
Well, what about the opposite side of that? How many people would not be who they are today if they hadn't played ball?
Right. Yeah.
So it kind of goes both ways, you know, and it's almost like the prison guards and the military guys in Nazi Germany. You know, some of those guys, the decisions that they were having to make, or like the people that they were killing, or, you know, the Jews that they were killing or whatever, how many decisions by other servicemen before that to just go, okay, it's another order. All right, I'm going to do this. I don't like it. But how many bad decisions in a row does it take to make someone who has just such outlandish behavior? You know, how many girls before the ones that were actually getting groped, raped, forced into doing whatever with Harvey Weinstein, where they're like, hey, just be my date at this award show. I don't want to go to that award show with Harvey Weinstein, but I really want this part, so I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
You know, there are other people who were involved and complicit in like what happened. Of course.
Hell, there might have even been people that said, that's all I've got to do.
Bro, here's a question.
Let's go to the hotel right now. Come on.
Where did Bill Cosby get his date rape drugs? Somebody was supplying him and knew he was, I mean, whatever he was doing, like there's someone else involved.
Still today on YouTube, there is a bit from one of his shows in the 70s or early 80s about how he slipped women Prohypnol in their drinks. It's still on there, and I forget what it's called, Spanish Fly.
But here's my problem, though.
That it was a joke, and people laughed about it back then. But now you look at Harvey Weinstein, all these people that were so loyal to him, and I'm only using him as an example because he's the one that's been out in the public so much. But, dude, think about how to be complicit, on the one hand, you need an income and you're trying to make you would be destroyed if Harvey didn't like you. So you turned your eye. Come on. You turned your attention away. You knew what was going on in that office. You knew.
But in a way too, man, I mean, can you involve yourself in everything? Like some things just aren't your business.
True.
And you're not trying to ruin your career over this crap that this guy's doing. So, I mean, it doesn't just because you're involved in it in that way, like you didn't do anything, like speak up, speak out, all that stuff. It's like, you still got to pay your bills, man. You still got to, and like, but what you don't know that decision until you're that person having to make that decision.
But what they could do in that industry is the actors, and they could just say, you know what, that production company's got a bad reputation. I'm not ever going to work for them again. Because there's plenty of other ones.
Movies.
He had them, yeah. And the only reason, of course, some of the conversation that I've read too is that the only reason he was even busted now was because it was just his production company was failing and he wasn't on top anymore. So nobody had anything to worry about coming out now. How disgusting is that?
Pretty disgusting.
So was it about protecting women? Was it?
I don't know.
Because they weren't doing it back when he was on top, but they're doing it now since he's not in control of anything, and now they can, get him back.
Bro, have you seen this deal where they're trying to, I don't remember how long ago this was. I got this secondhand from someone else who's involved or knows some of the guys from that Black Rifle Coffee Company.
Yeah.
But there was like some guy that, I don't know if he shot up someplace or broke in someplace or whatever, but he was wearing one of their hats.
Oh, wow.
And of course, then they had to come out and and I don't know the whole story, but they were involved somehow.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's like some write-up in the New York Times, and they're trying to tie the Black Rifle Coffee Company to that event. And it's like, yo, was he naked? Was he just wearing a hat?
Right.
Like, what kind of pants was he wearing? Oh, Gap? Oh, are you going to go after Gap? Now, It's so ridiculous, man. Like I think the cancel culture stuff, it is what it is at this point. I think most people are just laughing at it, and basically it's going to be there until it creates the next South Park, is the way I think it's going to go. Because people are so tired. It's like, oh, what word? Give me the words I can't say, and I'm going to say every one of them. Yeah. That's the way it's going to eventually get. It's like, you're telling me this list of words I can't say? Okay. All right. Wait till I get on my show and I'm going to say them. You know what I mean? And and so that's how you have South Park. That's how you have The Simpsons and Married with Children. I mean, it's a pushback against all that 80s stuff we were talking about. So to tie all this up, the cancel culture piece, yeah, man, like, okay, so Black Rifle Coffee Company, just because this dude's got a hat on, like, now all of a sudden you're going to cancel this entire veteran-run coffee company. And all it is, man, all these people, they're leeches up here, the critic leeches, New York Times, any of these people, all they want to do is write something that flares you up enough that they get clicks and buys and whatever. They don't. I don't think they actually care. They really don't.
I wonder if they're also the non-doers.
Well, how many of them have groped some girl or whatever? Like, how many people writing articles against Harvey Weinstein, and as disgusting as everything he did, I'm not backing any of that up. Forget him. But how many people that are writing articles about how bad he is are perfect people and have never done anything to another human being and have never done anything negative sexually to another human being?
Very true.
I mean, how many of those people exist? It's crazy.
Very true. I think what makes him so unique is that he was basically in charge of an entire industry. He was Hollywood at one time for a while.
Yo, but
him and his brother.
Okay, so
and he used that influence.
Bill Cosby did it. Do you think it's happening anywhere else in the world right now that someone in a powerful position is sexually abusing other people? For sure, it's happening.
And it will never go away.
It's like a story of humans. I mean, bro, it's biblical. It's themed in movies before, bro. Watch Taxi Driver. I mean, humans can be sexually perverted.
Mm-hmm.
Newsflash.
Right, newsflash. Yeah, but at the same time too, you and I, we've got daughters. I've got a daughter. I've got a granddaughter.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that crap happens. I mean, I do think that the Me Too movement and Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein and all that, I do think that A, they're running it into the ground. B, it is good that those things came out during a time
absolutely, yeah,
where we do have all this media. Like, think about if it came out in the 1800s, if you don't read the newspaper, you'd never know it happened. Mm-hmm. But now everybody knows that stuff happened and that it's not cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, yeah, I would hope that everyone who has a daughter sees that and it would frustrate them to the point where they would have a conversation with their kids. I don't know. But
and then
hopefully it reduces the future of that stuff happening.
Yeah, and then I would venture to say that the majority of women experience no issues like that in those industries. I would hope not. I would hope it wouldn't be like a majority.
Well, I would hope that it would spill over into just dating relationships, period, on what's acceptable and what's acceptable touch and what's not acceptable touch.
Right, and dress.
Yeah,
appeal.
Dude, I used to love that, man. When people would say like, "Oh, what was she wearing?" It's like,
right.
Just because she dresses like a skank doesn't mean you can just grab her.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? What the freak?
Right. But at the same time,
are you inviting it? And
right.
Yeah, I get all that.
I'm not saying anyone is responsible for that except the person. But
yeah,
I mean, like Dave Chappelle
one
said,
bad person though doesn't make an entire industry. And honestly, man, I don't even think that just because Bill Cosby did, like, okay, he's this imperfect human being, obviously, but I mean, he still offered the world a TV show with a leading black character about a black family, and we miss the important pieces that he did. Like, he was very adamant about the way black people were portrayed on his show. He didn't want them being just, stupid or yes a massa or any of that. Like, it was like, no, man, we're people.
They were doctors and educated.
Yeah. I mean, he was very adamant about that.
Mm-hmm.
So what about that? Is that just all lost on him being a pervert? He was playing this character. He was doing a job. And then now, I mean, they're never going to show that show anywhere ever again.
Well, dude, keep in mind though, man.
Show it and give all the residual income to St. Jude or something. I don't know.
I hear you. And that's the kind of stuff that we should be doing instead of complete canceling. But exactly what dude, we're talking about rape. I mean, dude.
Something that's crazy about rape?
I think that's worse than murder.
Oh, for sure.
And we're talking about a conviction. He was convicted of this, so it was true. This did happen. But think about slipping a woman a paralytic, meaning that she can't move her body, but she's completely aware of what's going on. And then getting intercoursed, How horrible of an experience that would be. And then when you go to complain, well, he's Bill Cosby, right? And nothing ever happens to him. And he's making millions and everybody loves him. And you're walking around with this anger and this hurt of knowing that he did what he did to you.
Yo, bro, did you just use intercourse as a verb?
I'm just saying.
Bro, he got intercoursed.
Yo,
man, listen.
I'm trying to keep it clean here.
I was coming around the alley.
But you know what I'm saying?
I saw this dude getting intercoursed by these other two dudes.
But you know what I mean?
They got through intercoursing him. They looked at me and I took off running.
I don't know what else to say. Just keep it clean. But no,
I get it.
But dude, how horrible of an experience that people go through, that men and women.
Yo, people commit suicide because
of course.
I mean, it is horrific. I agree.
That guy absolutely needed to pay for what he did. He needed to pay.
Yo, I saw this meme. That was like,
just because you're old doesn't mean you need to get away with stuff either. That's another frustrating point for me. I don't care. So now you're this old sweet lady, and we're not supposed to remember all the horrible things that you did.
But you raped 80 dudes.
But they're mean to their kids. They're a terrible parent or whatever. You should pay for that. You made your consequence is what made this person suicidal and depressed and hurt. You need to pay for that. Bill Cosby can't just go on being Bill Cosby and
okay, but in that argument would his
for rape.
Okay, so should it look bad on his parents that they raised a boy that raped?
I don't know.
I don't know, man. That stuff has to have some sort of.
That's a good point too.
Limit. Okay, so think about these serial killer people.
Yeah.
Like a serial killer. What about their parents?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't necessarily know. I mean, you said it earlier. We were talking about parenting. I mean, you can have 3 or 4 different kids, and you can have one turn out to be a Bible thumper
and be raised in the exact same house.
Yeah, same house, same parents, everything. One of them's addicted to drugs. One of them's a preacher, and one of them just is in the middle or something. I don't know. I mean, it is possible.
It's possible, and I've lived.
It's not necessarily possible. It's reality. That is the way it happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that incense loves you, man.
Yeah, I like it too.
It's dope. Bro, the gatekeeper thing too, like, I mean, we've talked about Harvey Weinstein and all that. One of the reasons I wrote that down for us to talk about is I was thinking the other day, I was listening to Metallica, and they're obviously big now, and they've gone up and down. And I was thinking, if it weren't for their fans, I would be more of a fan. If they were more accessible, like if they weren't so big, I feel like I would be super into them, going to see them all the time. And so I started really thinking about that idea about what other things have these gatekeepers that may restrict me from liking bands. Like a big example of that would be Dave Matthews Band. I think a lot of people would look at Dave Matthews Band and go, oh, I mean, he's okay, man. He's cool, but his fans are kind of, ugh.
Really?
Well, it's kind of fratty. I mean, if you're fratty, you wouldn't think that. But I mean, if you go to a Dave Matthews concert, it looks like you get a discount for wearing Patagonia or North Face or something. I mean, it's just, and I'm not knocking that because he is good, and I used to say that my wife is a fan of Dave Matthews. That's why I'm a fan. But I've seen some shows of his, man, now going with her that are, they're just ridiculous. He's a talented musician. Like him or hate him, it's either your thing or it's not. But you can't say the Petty. Tom Petty's a different animal, man. I think Tom Petty's pretty upper echelon for me. I think he meant everything that he was doing. I think it came from a pure place. I think he was involved with a lot of people. Jeff Lynne from ELO. I mean, he was in the Traveling Wilburys with Bob Dylan, Roy Orbison, Jeff Lynne, and George Harrison. I mean, bro, you're talking about a Beatle, George Harrison, maybe the best producer of all time, Jeff Lynne, at least during that era, I would say, and Tom Petty. And his songs are so simple. If you really listen to them, they're so just simple, but perfect. He was really good. And he's one of those people that kind of transcends genres where, you might have some guy that's really into punk or heavy metal. And you're like, man, you like Tom Petty? Yeah, he's cool. But like if you said, hey, man, you like John Cougar Mellencamp? No, dude, that dude's a douche.
Well, plus he's a tragic figure, isn't he? Tom Petty.
How so? Just because he's dead now or what?
Well, and he died from an overdose, didn't he?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was tragic. Like an OD, like he's trying to get high. No. I think it was a complication with some medicine where he had that cracked hip or whatever.
And doing too much of it. Maybe. I don't know. It gets into the reputation thing there, but I think that his music reputation transcends any of that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But I think there's
gatekeeper
there's
thing.
People, man, that like, okay, so take this. If you want to go see, it's the same either way, Dave Matthews, Metallica. Let's say Metallica is going to come play the stadium, and you want the best tickets you could possibly get for you. All right. Well, when they do the pre-sale, they have a fan club. It's called the Met Club. Well, they have legacy members there's like a certain cutoff. I don't know when it is, like 2005 or something. I have no idea. But like if you signed up now, or your son, let's say your son, like just now he's got enough money, he wants to start going to some concerts, whatever. Well, he wasn't in the fan club back in so he has no chance whatsoever because he's not part of the fan club to ever get like pit tickets or travel packages or any of that stuff. He can't. Unless he buys them on like the secondary market like StubHub or something. But so it's cool that they are that loyal to their original fans. But I think it also creates this bubble around the band where it's like now, okay, if I'm one of those legacy people, it's like, this is our band. There's like this level of entitlement to it. And I've seen this back when I would go see I did like 255 shows in 5 years. And so I wasn't necessarily always in the inner circle of these bands. There was one band that I feel like I got kind of close, and that was Chris Robinson Brotherhood, where I went to see them like 37 times or something. And so you start to hit that level. I mean, you're seeing a lot of the same people in line and you kind of get in. But most bands that I would go see, they would have this inner circle of fans that would, they'd be there first in line and they're like going to see them all these different times. And so then you show up and you're kind of this outsider where I always got to pass in to like hang out with those kind of people. Like a lot of times if you were just some off fan, like I'm just coming to see him, as first time I've seen him, they don't really care to talk to you that much for some reason. But I was always this like traveling adventurer, like, oh, that's that dude that's really into this band and he's just kind of coming to check this band out. So I would always get accepted, and I didn't realize this until the other day when I was really thinking about this gatekeeper idea, that you really do have these people that guard a lot of these bands or art. Probably movies are the same way. I don't know how that would work with movies, but it can be a little off-putting to like show up and then like here's these fans and like they're probably, I mean, obviously they're going to be different between Metallica and Dave Matthews, but if the fans are off-putting, it can completely ruin your experience with that band.
I see what you're saying. And it seems like a bad business model in the sense that you're really limiting your new fans.
Yes.
Your old fans will die off.
But maybe they figured out that creating this environment of making those people feel like they're in that inner circle keeps those people coming to multiple shows. Yeah, so it's all like retaining their customers in a way. So it's obviously something that they've measured out in their head and made a decision.
Sure.
They have to know that.
There's got to be some sort of, economic advantage or financial advantage.
But Dave Matthews is the same way. So he has a fan club.
I bet Kiss is like that. Do they have legacy stuff?
I don't know. I don't know about Kiss. I bet they are too.
They're huge and commercial, and
there's some bands that really play into that fan. Dude, Tom Petty had the best fan club I've ever been in my life, man. Not only would Tom Petty, like, you'd get pre-sale tickets. It wasn't based on any kind of hierarchy. You just had to be in by a certain time. Like, it wasn't like, hey, tickets go on Friday. It'd be like, okay, well, if you were signed up by February, like anybody since February, we're going to have like a second pre-sale. But if you are a member that's been here, 6 months, I don't remember how they did it, but there was like a time period where people couldn't just sign up now because they knew the concerts were coming. Mm-hmm. It would be like, okay, if you were a member, you've been a member for a while, you get this pre-sale. But what Tom Petty would do, and I went to see him, I saw him 3 times as Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and then I saw Mudcrutch 4 times.
Hell of a name.
Mudcrutch. That was their original band.
I like that.
Yeah, from Gainesville. Anyway, they he when you buy your tickets, it would be like, here's a row. You'd have the first 3 rows, and like the left half of the first row they would sell for like VIP, and it'd be like $600-700 a ticket, and you'd get like free wine or what. I'm not just making that up, but it'd be like, there'd be like VIP front row tickets. But then that other half of that front row would be sold to, and this would be like the first 10 rows would be this way, flip flopping back and forth. It'd be VIP, and then the other half would be members of his fan club. And not only did you get to buy the same tickets that these people were buying for like $600-700 or whatever for the VIP or the upgrades, but you would get your ticket at a discounted price off the face value just because you're a member of the fan club. So I'm sitting second row, Wrigley Field. Second row, he played, and Chris Stapleton opened for him.
Wow.
And I paid like $125 for my ticket. And and the guy next to me, they were from the fan club. Like, he was so good to his fans, not only on an opportunity to buy level, but on a, hey, I know you're my fans, like, I'm gonna save you a little money. Like, he just wasn't so obsessed. It didn't seem like he was just so obsessed with making a ton of money. Like, it still felt like he was being cool to his fans up to the very end.
And it goes to show it does create a bit of loyalty, I'm sure.
Yeah. But and I'm sure that's what they're doing with Dave Matthews, Metallica, and all these other bands that do the fan club thing. I think it's definitely necessary to do that. The problem that I have, like with Metallica specifically, is, bro, I don't know what the date was, but like 2005. Man, I didn't have any money to be in a fan club in 2005.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or whatever that cutoff date is. So there should be some sort of accountability for that. Like, okay, if you want to be in this legacy, there should be like a journey to get to the legacy status. They need to create a pathway for, how can I prove that I've been a fan of Metallica forever too, but maybe I wasn't financially able to be in fan. Like, it's really making it unobtainable, or like, the concert experience is very gated off for people now. Like, if you don't have means and money and you don't have some sort of status with this band, bro, you're going to be in the bleeds. You're going to be in the nosebleeds. Like, I don't know how you fix that, but or if it's even a problem, man. I don't know. Maybe it's just an idea I was thinking. Maybe it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just the way it is. Because I definitely think you need some sort of way to reward your fans and to skirt around the scalpers and keep them from getting front row tickets and then just turn around making the money and selling them to your fans for thousands of dollars.
Is there anything like a ComiCon for artists? I know that there's a country music fest. I don't even know if they do it anymore, where you just wait in line and go see the artist. They're sitting at a table and they sign autographs and you get a picture with them.
With who at Comic-Con, though? Just like artists?
Well, I went to a couple years ago, back before COVID, we had the Walker Stalker Con, which was cool because obviously I'm a huge fan of horror films. So you have all these different movie stars from these different movies Like Gremlins.
Bro, you know what we ought
The
to do?
dude from Gremlins. I didn't like him.
I'll go to the next
I
one
met
with
him.
you, and
Not
we'll
very
look
good.
at the list and figure out whether they have records, like movie soundtracks or something for their movies. We just walk in there with an arm of them.
Yeah.
They probably love that.
Yeah.
I bet, but what do people get, like action figures and stuff signed?
Oh, yeah. Well,
That's
like
cool.
Kane Hodder, for instance. A lot of people don't know who he is, but he played Jason like 3 or 4 different times in Friday the 13th. He's usually there, and then the guy that played Freddy Krueger, you know, things like that. But the Walker Stalker Con are the stars from the show, and they just have a table, and you wait in line. You have to pay for. They got to make money too. It's not like they're just going to travel around in the United States and sign autographs for free. So you pay for the picture, but you get to talk to them for a minute, and you know, they're just accessible, you know. And I wonder if there's anything like that for rock stars, or, I mean, if you were to try to get them all together in some sort of way, that just seems.
Yeah, but how are they going to make money off that?
I don't know.
I mean, like with the dude from Freddy Krueger, when you said that, I was.
But they did it with country music.
Yeah, they used to do it. Was Fanfare?
Fanfare, yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Bro, they said
It was
Garth
huge.
Brooks. They said Garth Brooks used to wait and sign every autograph. Like if you wait in line, he'd wait. He'd sign all of them. I don't know. I don't think they do it. I don't know of anything like that. I mean, I know artists do meet and greets. I've done some of those, like where you'd pay, let's say the normal price of a ticket is like $75. You'd pay like $300, and you'd get a really good seat, and you'd get like a little. You get it's real short, like a picture taken. Hey, what's up? Blah blah. Blah.
I met Scott Wilson just on a meet and greet one time. I just had an opportunity to sit and talk to him for a while, and he was on The Walking Dead. He was Herschel. He was in G.I. Jane. He's been in a bunch of different movies, but he's a great actor, and he had this uncanny ability. What I liked so much about him was he sounded like a Southern dude, but he was far from it when he had his normal accent. He was really good at playing a Southern guy, you know, with the accent. But anyway, so I got a chance to meet him, and they're just these normal people. I'm wondering if that's the same for. I mean, you can do it with an entire industry and country music, and bring Alan Jackson to a table to sign autographs while they wait in line for Garth Brooks, you know, or I don't know. That seems like an amazing thing to do, and I wonder if rock music does that. I've
never heard of anything like that for Brock.
It seems like it'd be hard to get everybody together, but how do they do it for country music?
It seems like security would be crazy.
Crazy, dude. Especially these days.
Yeah. I don't know. Is there any kind of like, can you think of a way where like certain movies or genres or whatever would be inaccessible for fans? Like, is there anything that I'm saying about the music piece that you feel like is relatable over to like
completely?
movies?
Yeah. I mean, when we're talking about Tom Petty, we're talking about an A-list, like legendary.
Yeah, he's like an artist too.
Well, that would be the same as like Robert De Niro.
Yeah,
you're not going to access them. Brad Pitt.
But I mean, everybody could go watch and experience his movie the same. What I'm saying is like it's like classes of fans.
Oh yeah.
For some of these bands, and they don't get to experience let me say it this way. They don't get the opportunity to purchase the same experience.
No. Nothing
in the
like
concert.
That. Nothing like that. Everybody's accessible that way.
But I bet at like the ComiCon and stuff, do they have like different grades of tickets where you can get?
Of course.
I bet they do that at do they do that at theme parks and stuff now?
Mm-hmm. There
Quick
literally
line
is a speed. Yep, speed line.
So ridiculous.
It is, man.
So if you have money, you can go around poor people.
You could easily go.
They used to rent
Comic-Con.
people in wheelchairs. You remember that?
You could easily go to You could easily go to a Comic-Con and spend over $1,000 just on meeting people.
So would you have to pay individual
Each one, yeah. Or you could buy like a gold package or whatever and get in the speed line, but you still have to buy the autograph picture. And
so when you walk up to a table and there's a guy from a movie or whatever, do you have to pay him to get his autograph right then?
Mm-hmm. A lot of them are, yeah.
Like, well, how much?
$10, $100, depends on who they are.
Is it the same at
the guy that plays Freddy Krueger? He wanted $100. That was 2 years ago. Just to come up and he'll sign this thing that he already has. It's a picture of him. He'll sign that one, and it'll just be a little snap with your phone and $100, and that's directly to him. That doesn't cost. That's not putting into account your
So how do you pay him? You use
cash.
Only cash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a money. Again,
but how's he making money though? I mean, maybe that's his career is going to these.
He's done. He's not doing it. That's what he's doing now. He goes to these things.
I think too, man. I don't know how COVID is going to mess all this stuff up. Because think about being famous, and you used to do these meet and greets. And I mean, how many people would he meet at one ComiCon? Like, is he going to be freaked out now? And I'm sure it's person by person basis, but have meet and greets and that style of human interaction. And bro, I'm all about some meet and greets. I've met some artists, and it can be a really cool experience, and it can really bring your fanhood full circle too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where, okay, I watched your movie, I've paid for this ticket, I've traveled all the way to this Comic-Con or whatever, and now here I am standing in front of you. And now if you're cool, if this interaction goes well, I'm going to even be more of a fan of yours. And I think they know that.
Absolutely. That's a really good way of putting it. The guy that played Big Red in The Walking Dead, I'm a big fan of his. His name is Michael. I'm drawing a blank on his last name, but I really liked him. I felt like I connected with him just talking to him. He may just be a really personable guy. But I brought my cover from when I was in Iraq. He was the only one I wanted to meet that year that I went to the Walker Stalker Con. And because he's been in a bunch of other things. He was in Band of Brothers, HBO miniseries. It's awesome. Well, anyway, I had this opportunity to meet him, and I had my son and the next door neighbor kid. She was with us, and we went up and we got to meet him and talk to him. And he says, so you were in Iraq, or the people that were handing out his autographs for them to sign, and they're the ones that taking the cash. They're there with him. And I said, do you think he'll sign my cover I wore in Iraq? And he goes, you were in Iraq? And I said, yeah. And he said, put your money away. So they handed the autograph thing over and the picture, and he signed my cover and took probably 20 different pictures with us. He was really cool. Spent time talking to me. That was, I don't know. It was cool. A good interaction.
Oh, I think it's cool.
I could imagine that if he went, I'm not signing that. Who said I would sign that? No, I'm not doing that. Just the autographed pictures. If he would have done something like that.
Dude, I've had that kind of stuff
Take
happen.
your picture back, man.
I've had, yeah.
When they lose touch, they're already losing touch, and they're already in a different universe that I'll never know. And that's good for them.
Well, think about how many times maybe they've been taken advantage of.
True. Understood.
Or freaks.
Understood.
Or people like, hey man, I want, like Joe Rogan said this, you probably heard the same thing I said. He's like, you'll get people, hey man, I need to talk to you. Hey, I've been thinking about some stuff. I got to talk to you about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they just get so obsessed or compulsive
and
about you.
But the majority of people are not like that.
Bro, John Lennon got shot right out of front of his place. I mean, that's in the back of a lot of these people's heads.
I know. Well, the guy that plays Daryl on the show.
Bro, I've stood right there where he got shot. I've been right there by the Dakota where he got shot. It's really
isn't it
weird,
like it's in there's stones there or something, isn't it?
Well, I just looked up which entrance he was coming out of when he got shot. Dude, you know what's so crazy about that? What absolutely drives me insane about John Lennon getting killed is he had met the guy earlier and was cool to him and signed with him.
Yeah.
He signed something for him.
But he was a loon, man.
Yeah. Didn't that dude come from like Hawaii or something crazy?
He wasn't a healthy person.
Yeah. So, I don't know, man. I've had some pretty cool interactions with, bro, I will tell you one that you will think is really cool. Dusty Hill from ZZ Top died. I did not meet him, but I put these back here kind of as a, that sucks, man. I hate when, A, I really like ZZ Top, and then B, it's like,
didn't you meet him? You knew?
No, I met Billy Gibbons.
Okay, yeah.
I never met any of those other guys, but so I worked at Whole Foods, and I probably told the story 3 or 4 times on here. I don't know, but it's actually a really cool story. So I walk in the bathroom, and I'm walking up to the urinal, and there's like 2 urinals. Let me start this way. You walk in the door, there's 2 sinks to the left, and there's 2 urinals, and then there's 2 closed door toilets. I don't know how you'd say that. Like where you would take a dump. So he's in the very back one, like the big stall. That's a good, that's a great word, stall. So he's in the stall in the back door open. Hilarious to me. Peeing at like a 45-degree angle. No, it's like a 30-degree angle at the toilet.
Do that all the time.
I do too.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. But anyway, so he had his little hat on. You know, that little like, I don't know what you call that little hat he wears. He's probably balding or something, but he wears that little.
The beret?
You know, it's not a beret.
Oh, a beanie.
It's kind of like a beanie, but his has like the little tails on it or like the little. Dude, I don't know.
I know what you mean.
I have hit the end of my words in describing dude's hat. So I'm sitting there and I don't even go to the bathroom, bro. I knew it was him just from his little hat. And I'm like, this is Billy Gibbons. So we walk over to the sink, or he goes behind me. He goes to the sink, and then I go to the sink, and I'm washing my hands. I'm like, hey, what's up, man? I'm like, how'd your show go the other night? And then he just kind of looked up at me, and he's like, oh, man. He goes, they had played at the Ryman. He's like, oh, I love that room, man. They just really pack them in there. And bro, me and him, we walk outside the bathroom. He talked to me for like 15 minutes. For real, cool. 15 minutes. Yeah. Like he was my grandfather. Just sitting, man, but the weather, and we talked about everything. And he's just a dude, man.
Yeah.
And he knew that I knew who he was. And like, I'm sure he could tell pretty quick, like, hey, man, this, dude works here. It's a pretty safe environment. And he just sat there and talked to me. And it was upstairs. It was at the Green Hills Whole Foods, and it has like an upstairs to it too, where you can like eat and go. So it's pretty private. Mm-hmm. We just sat there and just chit-chatted, man. And he was super cool, but talking about how it can change you as a fan. So I'm a big Black Crowes fan. Well, the Black Crowes historically got thrown off of of one of the ZZ Top tours where they were opening for ZZ Top because they were making fun of like the sponsors. And Chris Robinson would come out and be like, we're not sponsored by anybody, and just being real kind of arrogant. Well, they get thrown off. So historically, I've always taken the Crowes side because I'm a Crowes fan and thought, oh man, ZZ Top, what a bunch of douchebags or whatever. But here I meet this dude, and then he's super cool to me. So then I go revisit it, and bro, I don't care what anybody says about ZZ Top. There's basically two periods. There was the early period before all their hits, before Eliminator, where they were really just this Texas rock and roll blues jam band.
I always imagine them as a biker band.
Yes, they were.
Yeah. And
then they have the hits, and then look what happened to them. It's what I was saying earlier about like, okay, you get huge, and then people just move on to the next thing, and then ZZ Top kind of got left flat. And I mean, they've been able to tour off of their success from then on, but I don't know that people are showing up to their show, or were showing up to their shows to like hear the new tracks.
Yeah.
I don't know, but those guys really had it. And that guy was a Dusty Hill, man. He was a really good singer.
Didn't he do Creed? Did a song, not Creed. Know what I'm talking about?
No.
Never gonna win these.
Who we talking about? Billy Gibbons?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So tell me what you want. I want a big house. Who's that?
I don't know.
God.
Was it in a movie?
No, it was a big song. And then Nickelback. Yeah. He was in a Nickelback song.
Look at this photograph. Hey, bro, I saw a thing on Etsy the other day that's like a statue of him, and it's got a picture frame, and you can just like put your... Look at this photograph.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Let me look this up. So Nickelback and Billy Gibbons.
I think it was him. He did some sort of grandpa, I don't know. If you see the video, you know what I mean. But it's like he was giving wisdom. Of
Follow You Home?
Of what it was like to be super famous.
Nickelback featuring Billy Gibbons, Follow You Home.
Follow You Home.
I'll have to listen to that.
Yeah, he's in it.
Bro, that dude is an insane guitar player. He really is. I'm not a really big fan of white people in the blues. Like it's never really connected to me. There's very few people, let me say it that way. There's very few people that it feels real coming from them. And, or as opposed to emulating black blues artists, like somehow they've absorbed it into themselves. And I think that's really pure art in general. Like if you're taking in all these influences and then you put it out in some way that's honest, it comes off as honest, but then other people put it out and it just feels like, all right, bro, you're just,
Man, you just hit on something that people are going to want to cut my throat over. You ready?
Go.
Not only not only what you just said, but throw in there that they're from a different continent.
So
Eric Clapton.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Explain that one.
You know, man, I'll say this about Eric Clapton. If you'd asked me...
And he's not the only one.
If you'd asked me 2 months ago what I thought about Eric Clapton, I would say he's overrated. He's John Mayer of the 70s. He's a big douchebag, all that. I watched this documentary on Eric Clapton. I've totally changed my tune. I think he was all those things, but he was those things when he was a drunk. He's a very broken person. Like if you read or watch anything on him, well, even that, man, he had a pretty rough childhood, and his mom really didn't want anything to do with him. There's a lot of stuff there, man. But what he did is married up Marshall amps and Gibson guitars and really created that sound. I really believe that. I don't care what anybody says. He is the guy that basically created what was to become 70s rock. Like, I don't think you have...
Really?
I swear. I don't care.
Bro, that's huge.
Yeah. I really think he did that.
That's a bold statement.
And I think he did that with his incorporation of the blues and what he understood through the blues. I think that is the missing link that I haven't had in my head forever about Eric Clapton. Now, do all his records suck mostly? Yeah, I don't like them. I really don't. I don't know, man. There's something not honest to me about this white guy, like you're saying, who comes from England and he's trying to sing music like the Delta Blues or whatever. But
you can't sell it.
But he can't, man. His guitar playing, though, is absolutely unreal. Mm-hmm. But I mean, think about, like, then he has all this music during all these times that we were talking about. Like, man, he's got music during the digital age, and it's real weird. And he has this whole time where he's drunk, you know, and and he even he says all this, man. And once he got out of all that, and his kid dying, and then he started getting back to a better place, then you have Unplugged, which is ridiculous. He's got an album called Reptile that came out in like 2000 or something. That's actually pretty good. Yeah. I even liked that Journeyman record from like the early 90s was good. But I don't know, man. I mean, he's making records for women and stuff, man. I'm not saying it's completely terrible, but it's just not what I'm into.
I know what you mean.
But his really early stuff with like John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, and then his record, bro, he's all over some of that early George Harrison solo record stuff. Yeah. Like All Things Must Pass. And then he did that Derek and the, like Layla area, that Derek and the Dominoes era. He's insane.
Dude, it wasn't that in the Casino movie? I mean, it's been on soundtrack after soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
It's a defining sound. It's one of the defining sounds of the 70s, I think.
But yeah, I've gone from basically saying that I think he's one of the most overrated musicians ever to really understanding why he is overrated. Like, he is overrated.
The Boss is the most overrated.
Man, we are digging in here, aren't we? Digging our heels in.
He is.
Yeah, I don't want to just, man, I really don't want to sit and just like trash Eric Clapton. Because I do think he has his place. He's insanely talented. He probably is one of the best guitar players on the planet. It's just not what I'm into. I'd rather, there's just other things I'd rather hear, but he had his spot. He was important. I'm not paying like $1,000 to go see him now, though. I'm just not.
No.
I did see him in 2000. Now, his guitar player, Doyle Bramhall II, he's been his guitar player for a long time. I think he's had some battles with substances and stuff too. He's had his own demons, but that dude is an insane guitar player. And he's one of those people that's been like under the scene. Like, if you know who he is, you know who he is. But most people don't know who he is. He had this band called Doyle Bramhall and Smokestack. And in 2000, they're opening for Eric Clapton. And then he's in Eric Clapton's band. And I'm pretty sure his wife at the time was like a backup singer or girlfriend or whatever. And it was really good. But that was real, because that's happening right this second. Now, in like 2000, you hear Eric Clapton playing Layla. I mean, it's not like you're hearing it in like 72, 73. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
You're going to hear that tune, but it's not like what's happening at that moment. So, I don't know, man. It's just really what people are into. And if Eric Clapton's your thing and you love Eric Clapton, man, be all about it. It's just, I don't know, man. I'm in a different vein right now. Maybe when I'm a little older, I'll get into.
Well,
I
don't know that there's any revolutions left.
Of what?
Anything.
What do you mean?
In music and entertainment, I don't think there is.
Well, rap. I mean, rap is definitely
a revolution. I think it's maybe the revolution translates to a creation of a genre.
I bet
or
electronic
style.
music fans would disagree with that, but
we witnessed Michael Jackson, we witnessed Garth Brooks, and we witnessed Nirvana. Was there any other ones?
I would argue that the Strokes in 2001 or so, like maybe not just then. I've argued that it is just them, but you remember when the White Stripes came out and the Strokes, there was like a summer, the bands, the Vines, the Strokes, the Hives, the White Stripes, all of that stuff was coming out, and I think it killed all the Creed, Nickelback, Incubus. It happens, man. Maybe not as big as what you're saying. Like, think about Nirvana coming out and absolutely just demolishing,
completely transformed rock.
That one's a pretty big one.
The very big one. And
I think it's a huge.
And Garth Brooks too, man. That one can't be denied.
Yeah, I'm not.
It was just a guy that stood in the middle of a stage and played a guitar with maybe 3 other people behind him singing backup vocals, and every concert and every music video ever produced in country music ever to that point, it was always the same.
That's fair.
And then you've got Garth Brooks, who's this freaking rock star. He made it possible for
He's
country
still not
music.
on Spotify.
Yeah.
He
made it possible to be a larger than life rock star in country music. He defined that role, I think. And he made the sound different. The sound was different.
See, then I think there's bands too that low key do it. Like somebody like Pink Floyd. Like, even though they're huge and they've gotten all their credit, and nobody would deny that I don't think anybody would deny that they're good. You know, you could argue about what songs are good or not, but they're very talented and have their place. But nobody ever talks about Pink Floyd like they're the Beatles. You know, nobody's ever saying like, but man, what would music be like without Pink Floyd?
But wouldn't it be the Beatles, the later Beatles and Pink Floyd? In the same respect that later Michael Jackson and Prince? Like they made music, absolutely, and they influenced a lot of the music we still have going on today, but their paths didn't cross until one of them was already well in his career, and then this one showed up. So it's almost like a byproduct. It's almost like they were created from that first one. Well, meaning Michael Jackson first,
so you're saying,
Prince second.
So you're saying Pink Floyd came because of the Beatles?
Because of the Beatles. Well,
they were already around, man. Like, they were doing some I don't know the exact dates. I would say that the Beatles probably predated them by a couple of years, but it's not a lot. But I know Pink Floyd was at least doing something by like 66, 65, I think. Yeah, I could be wrong.
But the sound of the Beatles has transformed during the whole time they were making music, right?
I will be 100% honest.
They were.
I'm not the biggest Beatles fan.
Dude, me either. I'm so glad to hear you say that. But it's undeniable that they were a category of their own for a long time.
You know who? Here's a good one. This is a good example of what we're saying. So you have the Beatles. They're singing "Love, Love Me Too," all that, and that's what the music industry is. You hear it in the Beach Boys. It's very simple.
That's a good song.
And then here comes Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan really did change music. He really did change the context.
I hate that you just said that.
And well, I mean, you can hate his music and hate his voice and think that he sucks and all that. But his lyrical content, even, bro, just go look at Jimi Hendrix. He had such an impact on Jimi Hendrix that it completely changed the way Jimi Hendrix wrote music. I think it did that for a lot of people. People understood, oh man, like this can be something more. Like this is more than just a pretty voice like Elvis or Frank Sinatra. Like you can really be saying something like he sang in Blowing in the Wind. Like, how many roads does a man have to walk down before they call him a man? Show me a song that says something like that before Blowing in the Wind.
Bro, Jimi Hendrix had a sound. His voice was what sold him. I think
it was coming from his soul, man. I think
it was
he was
unbelievable, dude.
He was a medium.
And his voice, man, it was hard to, I mean, it's great.
He didn't think he was a good singer. Do you know that? Neither did Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Well, when he was at his top, he was a one-hit wonder technically.
Yeah.
But it was a song that never even gets played. But the thing about Jimi Hendrix is the same sort of idea, and maybe you'll agree with me on this one, maybe you won't, but for the same reason that Stevie Ray Vaughan is a legend. He would have kept playing music. He would have kept playing venues. He would have still put out records probably. But he wouldn't be Stevie Ray Vaughan as he is Stevie Ray Vaughan right now, because he's legendary. He died early. He had really good music. If he lived longer, he probably would have created very terrible music, or it would have turned into something that isn't Stevie Ray Vaughan. Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah. That almost happened to him.
Well, the longer people's careers go, usually in the music world too, it gets worse before it gets better, or it's not gonna get better. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. Do you know that David
like
Bowie?
Madonna.
Madonna's going to play naked at. That's about the only way you probably could sell tickets, huh?
Yeah.
Anyway, so David Bowie met Stevie Ray Vaughan. I think it was at a jazz fest that Stevie Ray Vaughan was playing. They met in like the artists' little area where they hang out. I don't know what you call that, but
green room,
something. I'm sure there's a lot of pot and smoke,
hopefully
billiards.
Mm-hmm.
But he wanted Stevie Ray to play in his band, and he actually is on he's on a David Bowie song, that Let's Dance.
Wow.
He plays the solo, and when you hear the solo, you can tell straight up that it's Stevie Ray. But then when David Bowie was like, "Hey man, come be in my band," he was like, "I already have a band." He hadn't made it at all. Like, he wasn't big at all. He's playing bars in like Austin and stuff. And so he's like, "Nah, man, I got a band." And then went on to, I don't know how much success he actually had, because when he had gotten clean, and when he died, I think it was 91, he was opening for Eric Clapton. And Eric Clapton even said, he's like, "Bro, he didn't say bro, but he's like, I hated going out after him because I knew like how much better he was." And that's basically what he said. That's not a direct quote, but he was like, I'm having to go out after this guy who's like the best to ever do it.
Interesting.
But then he got killed.
Honestly, for what it's worth, I'm glad he died the way that he did and not a drug overdose.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You don't want to see anybody die, but yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you don't want anybody to die, but
it's like you go out hard and fast, man.
At least it wasn't suicide or drug overdose or something, screwed up. Like Cantrell or
bro, Randy Rhoads. Were you ever into Ozzy?
No.
Do you know much about Randy Rhoads, his guitar player that got killed in that plane crash?
I saw an interview where Ozzy talked about it, and he still today, it still bothers him so much. And
that was his buddy, man.
Yeah,
that was his
really close. Yeah,
they were just trying to buzz the bus in like just like a little airplane. They were on some farm or something, and they were just trying to buzz the bus and clipped it. Flipped the plane, blew up, killed him.
Dude,
just screwing around.
Dead.
Yeah, there's a lot of tragedy in classic rock. Like, they were figuring a lot of that stuff out. I mean, you got the people that got killed at the Stones show because in Altamont, California, where the Hells Angels were doing the security.
Oh yeah,
and they just like stabbed a dude to death. I don't know if I think the dude like pulled a gun or something. There's something else to it, and they stabbed him to death.
Mm-hmm.
There's that. But at that show, they were bringing the Stones like through the crowd in like a van. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah,
I mean, there've never been huge shows like that before. I heard a thing the other day where they, I think it may have been on Joe Rogan's podcast, where they were talking about the Beatles when they played Shea Stadium, that the amps and the speakers and stuff they had, they weren't even loud enough to, they did not have the technology to play over the crowd. Like, they were just hoping the crowd would just be quiet, and of course they weren't.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's wild how much those bands really broke ground for a lot of these other bands, even just with how to have concerts, how to have security, how to tour, what planes to get on and not get on. I mean, bro, how many bands have learned lessons from Skynyrd crashing their plane or helicopters going down? I mean, it's crazy, man, how much tragedy there is in ODs. Hey, man, don't take that much heroin. It'll kill you, dude, that much. I mean, I don't know. It's really wild, man, how far all that stuff's come. But I think that's a really good reason for bands to revere older bands, you know, and maybe spread that around a little bit. I think I think you could make a list of 20, 30 bands. Like, I don't understand why we always have to come to this. Like, I don't say we, but as a society, why is the conversation always Beatles versus Stones? First of all, exactly. Those are both British bands.
We've moved on. We've moved
like
on.
we should at least, you know, I'm a big the Byrds. Do you know the Byrds?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big Byrds fan. I think they are the American Beatles. I honestly think they have more influence on modern music in this country, maybe even than the artists who are, maybe there's these artists like Jason Isbell or whoever that are popular now that may go, oh yeah, I like the Stones, I like this, I like that, and may not even realize that a lot of people that they were into were influenced by the Byrds and what the Byrds were doing. So what makes the Byrds so special is they take what's going on with the Beatles in this band type idea, and then they see what's going on with Dylan and the lyrics and the American side of it, and they put the two together, and that's what the Byrds is, or what they are, or what they were. So anyway, and their production's ridiculous, and of course they have hits and stuff too, man. But they don't get the credit like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young or something like that. But dude, you don't even have bands like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young without the Byrds. You don't have Tom Petty without the Byrds.
It's for the Byrds.
Yeah. But anyway, man, that's what I think about that. But
did we cover everything, you think?
I think we did, and some. Dude, I'm really into that David Copperfield story you told, bro.
Yeah.
I really am a fan.
I've met a lot of celebrities over the years, and I've been to way more countries than I have the States in America, just by the nature of being in the military. It was right after September 11th is when we started taking off everywhere. Having said that...
Boogie, Rapungi, and Arazachi. I don't know. I can't
That's pretty good. Having said that, there's so many that just stands out.
Bro, where was the first place outside of this country that you stepped foot on?
The first one, probably Canada, because we stopped over in Canada to go to England once. England was the bomb, dude. It's a great time.
Like, just people just passing out Coke and...
I don't know. We at the time, at least, the places where we went were really into American country music everywhere. And that seemed odd.
I really hope that's not the case now.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's awful. Do you like modern country?
I don't. No, I don't respect it at all.
Do you think? Are there people that do? I usually just hear people crapping on it, but then like I think there is a huge group of people that still.
Well, it's a generation. It's just
country.
A different generation. They want a different sound. They want it to sound like everything else. When it's supposed to be separate. It's supposed to be a steel guitar, country road, you know.
Dude, they did that in the 80s lyrics too, though, man. Think about Michael. I've said this before, but think about Michael Jackson, where he had heavy metal licks in the middle of Thriller. Like, they've been doing that crap forever.
Mm-hmm. I know.
It's just Nashville's a little more gross about it. To me, it always seems like it's like a step behind, and they're just like, it's almost like Christian music.
Dude, don't even get me started on that.
It's like they're always a step behind, and they're just emulating something else that was already popular.
Yes.
Don't do that. Just be. I think that's why you get people like Sturgill Simpson that come out, or Whitey Morgan, Cody Jinks. I may be naming people you don't know, but there is an underground scene. Ward Davis. There's these songwriters, Kendall Marvel, who are like Chris Stapleton. Mm-hmm. And really have the same talent that he does, maybe even with songwriting or whatever else. They just haven't gotten that stage like Chris Stapleton has. I do think Chris Stapleton's legit. I think Chris Stapleton, in a way, is kind of the second coming of Garth Brooks, where you have this guy, and I've met Chris Stapleton too multiple times, and he's a really nice guy. And his wife is really nice. His band members are really nice. And, you know, he's gotten to a point now where he doesn't do meet and greets anymore, just because, I mean, he really is big right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he has been for a while, but after that award show where he did the thing with Justin Timberlake, I mean, that kind of sent him into the stratosphere and really cemented him in.
And it was good.
But he really is a good artist.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I really hope that the record industry, the music industry, at some point will realize that you can't force a square peg through a round hole. You really do have to let these bands develop. The Eagles' first album is trash.
Nashville has not stopped creating bands.
Yeah, and I don't think you create it. It's one of those weird things that no matter how hard
nobody's
you try,
discovering anybody. They're creating them.
Yes, I agree. I 100% agree.
It's a commercial commodity.
And there may be small exceptions to that or whatever, where people are getting through that have nurtured their talent before they got to them. But I mean, I think as an artist, and I'm not a musical artist, so I don't really know this, but I think at a certain point you have to have the time to develop. And okay, now we're popular. Okay, now maybe you need some time, man. How do you navigate this popularity and create another record? Because I mean, the story's the same. It seems like with most artists, you get popular, and then the second record is not as good, and then the third record is not as good, and the fourth record, and it's just the same thing every time.
Yep.
So how do you? And then they let them go, man. Like, they're on to the next thing.
You tell me where you have repeat artists that are hitting the charts, one right after the other. I mean, I'm sure that there's.
I think there's a compartment. A lot of times I'm speaking about music from inside of what I feel like is like the venue for true artists.
Yeah.
So like, there's a lot of people that enjoy music, but they're never going to concerts. Maybe they or maybe they go to like one or two a year or something. But then there's the people that like live music and are going to concerts all the time, or like maybe they live in Nashville and they're always at the Ryman and they're always going, like, checking people out. There are groups of people that do that. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people that experience music and want music in that way. But then there's other people that they like music, but they just like listen to it while they're working and on the way to work. And maybe they got like, I've met a lot of people that are into one band, but just like really heavy into that one band, and that's their music fandom. Is, man, I'm really into Kiss. But really that's the only, like, Kiss comes to town, they go. But other than that, they're really not into it. Do you know what I mean?
My friend Max is a perfect example.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
He's a huge Metallica fan. Huge Metallica fan. He can tell you.
Is he legacy, bro?
He probably is. I'm not sure.
Ask him if he's. It's
the
annoying.
Last time
by the
they
way.
were in Nashville, he went. Yeah. Dude, he's not going to miss the opportunity to see.
Bro, they have drones in their show. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So I went to that show too. They play in the round, which bro, Metallica is really cool. Let's talk about them real quick and close up on that. You want to talk about Metallica and then let it go? So here's my experience with Metallica. My dad didn't really like them. I didn't really hear it a lot. And then they put out that Garage Inc. record.
Yeah.
And it has, oh my gosh, bro, it's got Sabracadabra. It's got Turn the Page, Whiskey in a Jar. Like, they're playing some songs we knew.
Yeah.
And they're playing Leonard Skinner on there. Tuesday's Gone. And that was the thing that cemented them in for me as like a band that I wanted to pay attention to and like. Because I'd checked them out, and it's, it's newer music at the time. And they're doing the load, reload stuff. And so maybe some of their fans aren't into it. But that was when I was discovering them, was Load, Reload, and then Garage Inc. And I remember that I tried to buy it at this record store. I think it was like in Gatlinburg, bro. We were on vacation. And it was coming out, and I was so pumped about it. And I couldn't get it because it had a parental advisory on it. Thanks, Tipper Gore.
Sure.
And my dad went in and bought it for me.
But it made it, you had to have it more because it had that sticker on there. Or that
I never
label.
cared about that. Man, my parents never really made a big deal about that.
It meant something, though, to a youngster.
Yeah. But then I went to see him. So I knew a guy, his name was George, and he used to work for the band. Like, his job was he used to live
You met
close.
him?
No, I had a friend named George who lived in my old neighborhood in Nashville, and he worked for Metallica. I didn't
That's
know
what I'm
this.
saying. Did you know? Okay, so you didn't
I
know.
knew him before. I knew him, but I didn't know he worked for Metallica.
Okay.
I just knew him because he was in our neighborhood, and like we were in one of those revitalizing neighborhoods, and so you'd have like the meetings and like the people who were there fixing up the neighborhood.
Sure.
A lot of them would get together at the same houses and have cookouts and stuff.
Right.
So I knew him and his wife, and we'd see him walking around the neighborhood. And I don't remember how we got to talking about it, but I was like, yeah, man, Metallica's coming to town or whatever. And he's like, oh yeah, I work for them, man. He's like, give me your number, man. Are you wanting to go to the show? And he like hooks me up with some tickets.
Wow.
Like I bought them from him, but I didn't, even then I don't think it had registered what was going on, that he worked for the band. I was going to get some
I was about to say that he would be something legendary to me.
Bro, I don't even know where this dude's at. I should bring him and we should talk to him.
Do it.
I should look him up. He's cool. Bro, he's really cool, actually. I don't know if he still works for him or not, but his name's George. Anyway, so I get the tickets, and they play in the round. And so for anybody that doesn't know what the round means, that means the stage is set up in the middle of the venue, and then every seat, like in an arena, is sold. So it's set up like a hockey rink, but people are on the floor, GA, that's general admission, and then the stage is set up in the middle. So that's the way the show was. Well, the first time I saw them was this time. That would have been 2000, man, I don't know. I could look it up, 5-ish, 2005, 2006. It might have been a little later. So we see him. The encore of that show, Lemmy from Motorhead comes out and plays it's on YouTube. You can look this show up. Those videos of him coming out, and they play 2 songs, and that's the only time I ever got to see Lemmy too, and he's dead. But man, I've really always been into Metallica, but they've never just been like my primary band. Gotcha. But they've always been this like cool go-to. I've listened to them a ton working out. They're perfect for that, you know? And so anyway, I started really following them after that, music-wise, not going to see them, but getting all their newer records, staying up on what they're doing. And I went to see them this last time when they came to Nashville again, and they're playing in the round again. But they had these little drones, man, that are like during one of the songs that just like fly around their heads and around the stage. And so anyway, man, I got really into it, and they did the Symphony and Metallica shows again in San Francisco a few years ago. It was called S&M 2. And me and my buddy Scott, we went out there to those shows. It was actually the most expensive concert ticket I've ever bought. It was worth it. It was cool.
I had a denim jacket with the pins on my jacket. That was
cool.
That was a thing.
But do you remember everybody hating them in the 90s, though, during the Napster stuff?
Yeah, but
it really rubbed people the wrong way.
Yeah, they came across looking like elitist.
Yeah,
but
I don't think they meant it that way, man. I've never felt that. I didn't feel that way then. I was like, I don't know, man. I kind of get it. Like they're just not wanting their stuff
Lars
stolen.
was right, man.
But he comes off as a douche sometimes, though, man.
Okay.
Like he's just, yeah, what we're gonna do? We're just. But I think people confuse driven people sometimes for somebody being a douchebag,
bro.
It's like maybe he's just has the way he wants it, and he's an artist, and he doesn't want his stuff stolen.
Dude, he works, man. That guy
he's
works.
Really good.
He's really good, and he doesn't stop. That guy's tons of energy. You saw that thing on Netflix? Some kind of monster?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Okay. Unfortunately, I watched that. No offense by any stretch that Metallica is watching this. I just want you to know.
Metallica ain't watching this.
I'm just saying. Just saying. When James came across as kind of a dork to me, his image changed forever. And it wasn't because of the alcoholism and all that. It was he seems narcissistic to me. There has to be a certain level of that when you're on
James.
Yeah,
the lead singer, the guitar player, lead singer.
He seemed like pretentious.
I've never taken that from him. I've never
for sure.
Caught that from him.
Remember he said he didn't want anybody to work. His alcoholism, which is good, he's treating it, and he's working with his doctor about you only put in 4 hours a day for work. The more, and that was his problem.
But the truth is, man, that's really his band. Like he's writing all those lyrics.
It's Lars.
It's really both of them, bro. Because James is writing the lyrics.
Before him, it was Dave Mustaine, though.
I mean, that was like that one record, man.
Still, he wasn't always Metallica. Lars,
bro, that's like 83.
I'm just saying,
that's 37 years ago.
There's only one.
All those lyrics.
There's only
all those songs.
Well, Kirk Hammett did it.
James,
too.
It's James. Like they're not writing a song without James there.
Well, Kirk Hammett did it for a long time. Well, in the 90s, he wrote a bunch of songs too.
Well, I'm not saying he wasn't involved, but I'm saying I think that the direction of it would be safe to say that the direction of the band is definitely controlled by James and Lars.
For sure. Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
There's still two, so let's break it down to one.
But I don't think I think it's a marriage.
No. But anyway, So you watched
No, but James has been there since the very beginning. Like when you say Dave Mustaine, it's not like Dave Mustaine left and then James came in. James was there. Kurt came in.
True. But watching that documentary, if you call it a documentary, it kind of feels like one. When he was going off on him about, look, man, you're going through this and that's fine. You can't work more than 4 hours a day. That's okay too. But don't tell me that I can't work.
Bro, they were in a really messed up place during that record, though, I think.
Oh, yeah.
They're showing that in that documentary. It's been a long time since I saw Some Kind of Monster, but...
I mean, you can't tell the rest of the band that we can't work just because you can't, you know.
Dude,
you say that to Lars, he seems to me, with his artwork as well, if you've ever seen his artwork, it's amazing. Lars? Yeah. He does paintings, dude.
They're good?
They're the size of that wall and as tall, framed. And I don't know. He does the art thing. But anyway, he sold millions of dollars of that. People are buying that stuff. You know.
Well, the good parts of a band.
He's always working is what I'm getting at.
And dude, another thing that they do, man, I mean, you could blaspheme them and say like, oh, where they have their own whiskey brand, blackened whiskey. Mm-hmm. And it's bro, you make whiskey and you're an alcoholic. Like you could
severe alcoholic.
Yeah, you could make those, but man, if you're that successful, I don't think it's stupid to try different ventures, to try something else. Yeah. You know, you don't screw with the main thing. You don't screw with your band.
I want them to.
But those guys, man, the good part about those guys, and it's the same as like Neil Young doing the Bridge School and all that, they have, with their what's the, I just lost it. All Within My Hands. They have an organization called All Within My Hands where they give money back to the communities. They're giving part of the money from the concert tickets back to the communities. And they'll even show, like you're at the concert, they'll show a picture of the band with like some local, like in Nashville, it might be like the mayor or somebody, you know, and there's a picture with them and they're giving some money to some foundation in Nashville. Like they are a very giving band. And I think that says a lot about the place they're in now. Like I think as a band now, they're in a really good place. And I know at the end of their last tour, James was having some alcohol problems again, or substance problems. I don't think they came out and said it was specifically alcohol, but he was having substance problems. The coolest part about them too, man, is like they're not skirting around that. They're not trying to publicly cover up their image. Like, hey man, I'm a human just like you, bro, and I got messed up again.
And that's how you help people.
Yeah.
You're on this pedestal and you're in a really good spot, in this big spot. People could say, man, he's got the same problems I do.
Of course.
We're all in this together.
And it may even deepen your love for that music.
And I promise you, the opinion that I gathered from that documentary, it's the point of a documentary, right? It's supposed to put the information out there for you to make a decision either way. And I'm not judging him. I'm no better than him. The alcoholism part of it had played no part at all. He just seemed, I don't know. I can recognize narcissism. It drives me crazy. I hate that quality of people.
Maybe, and it could be where he was at that moment, man.
The dysfunction, to me, the narcissism is a dysfunction. It just, it erodes relationships. It erodes other people.
Do you think if you asked him, if you were like, hey, man, do you feel like at that time you were narcissistic and you were controlling or whatever, do you think he would go, yeah, I probably was?
Maybe.
I think those dudes are probably open enough that they would say that.
I hope so.
I do. I think they are specifically. I don't know that all artists. Okay, first of all, a lot of people don't like admitting a weakness or don't like admitting like, hey, I did something wrong there. But I think there is something powerful. I mean, they put the documentary out. They know that they were dysfunctional during that time.
Yeah.
The sad thing is too, man, I wanted to bring this up before I move on, but that record that they were trying to make at the time, Saint Anger, people ended up not really even liking that record. And I was sitting here the other day, and I have a box set of that record, and I was listening to it, and I was like, man, I really don't know why people didn't like this record. I liked it at the time, and I thought it was different. They were just trying something new, and it doesn't have solos and stuff on it. It's not, they were really trying to find some kind of new area all through the 90s. They did Load, Reload, and then they did this record. I don't remember what year that came out. It might have been 2000. But anyway, they never really found different different areas of music that they could go into that their fans liked. So ultimately, like with Death Magnetic and those
That makes sense.
they had to just kind of go back into their 80s formula with longer songs, solo. That's just what people wanted. But I almost like them to a fault where I like all of it just for what it is.
Well, they're a brand, and their bigger fans in the 80s and the 90s now have careers and money, and they can spend more on their stuff.
Yeah, they kind of have what Joe Rogan would call FU money at this point.
Oh, yeah,
like,
for
hey,
sure.
Man, I don't care.
Everything's paid for, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
They don't care. And when I say they don't care, I don't mean that they don't care about their fans, because I do think that Metallica cares about all that stuff that I was describing earlier with their fan clubs and all that. You don't do those type things.
Agreed.
If you don't appreciate these fans that have been here.
agree.
Like, they can prove, okay, these guys have been in our fan club since blah, 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 blah. They're legacy members. We're going to lock them in, and we're going to appreciate them from here on. That's what we're going to do. They made that decision.
Or the time James got burned in Canada.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And they had their, I forget what he's called. He's the one that sets your guitar. He,
Like the
guitar tech.
Yeah.
He had the guitar tech play several shows, and he just sang with a freaking cast on his arm.
I didn't know that.
That's loyalty to your fans, and that's wonderful.
I think that's what they meant with the Napster stuff too. In a way, it was almost like they weren't worried about the fans, but I think they were worried about the other bands. I really do genuinely think that they were like, hey man, we could say something about this and it might matter because we're Metallica, but these other bands that are small and trying to get going, like, they're just stealing their art, man. Look at them. Like, we got to say something. I think that really is the direction they were coming from.
I agree too, but you have to remember too that we were making our own mixtapes, and we weren't paying anybody.
Yeah.
So all Napster was at the time was an extension of that.
Yeah.
It wasn't looked at as a commodity. It was just songs. And
well, we didn't have enough money, man. Like, if I wanted to go buy all the CDs that I ever wanted to buy, I would have never had enough money to do that.
No. Especially when you had to buy 12 songs and only one of them was good. That was part of the machine. You know, Sony Music and what they set the rules, and they knew exactly what they were doing. I don't know. Now it's different because you can listen to one particular song, and if you don't want to pay for it, you can listen to it for free all day long on YouTube, because they're going to put a music video and the song on YouTube, and you don't have to pay for any of it. It's being paid for by other people, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
I think the moral of all this, everything that we've said today, if there's a moral in all of it, because we're not ripping on anybody. It's just enjoy what you enjoy. Block out the noise.
Agreed.
Like, you know, I think the soap opera that we've described around Metallica for the last 20, 30 minutes, I mean, in a way, it's how other people have latched on to their success. Like, the only reason that we know about the Napster thing, and the only reason we hear all the negative stories or whatever about really anybody, is because somebody else is like pointing it out.
Sure.
You know, it's really easy for a critic to go, this dude's a drunk, and he's trying to, they're elitist. Look at him with the Napster stuff. I mean, it's really easy to just keep playing that card when you're not a creative person yourself.
Agreed.
And you're not adding to the conversation in any way. So you're not adding music. You're not adding any kind of real insight or development of thought or whatever, man. I mean, you're just sitting there in your mom's basement typing out some article to rip into some band, just hoping that it's enough of a twist or a catch or whatever to get you some attention and get you some clicks. I mean, that's disgusting.
It is disgusting.
Like, just enjoy the movies you want to enjoy. Enjoy the music you want to enjoy. It really is fun, though, to argue it with another human being. I cannot tell you how many good conversations I've had that started with, bro, I can't stand the Beatles. And then another person's just like, what?
I love it.
And then you talk about why.
Yeah, I love it.
And I really do like the Beatles, man. I always say that. I just don't laud them the way other people do. I think music is a collective thing, and I don't think that. I think there's some bands that need to be put up on a pedestal. I think the Beatles are definitely one of those bands, but I think there's a lot of bands that didn't get their credit, and you know, I mean, we could do a whole podcast about how I think classic rock radio was actually racist too. That you want to look at an industry, man, where people of color or Mexican music or whatever was blocked out. It's definitely there. I mean, again, we could talk about that forever, but I think that being said, there are a lot of bands that might have been, black or had black people in them or whatever that didn't get as much attention as white bands. That's true. Mm-hmm. And it sucks because there are a lot of good musicians that, like, bro, just look at the blues guys. I mean, B.B. King and John Lee Hooker, and how many of those guys wouldn't have gotten the credit or wouldn't have gotten any attention at all had these guys it took people from Britain, like, looking at these guys going, man, those guys are genius. Look at them.
I know.
And calling the attention going, oh yeah, we got these dudes over here too.
But dude, that's the gatekeeper thing.
Yeah.
They taught us who to like.
Yeah.
They set the rules, man.
But I think Gen X people are like, forget gatekeepers.
Oh, for sure.
I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to figure it out for myself. I'm going to look at it and decide for myself. And really, man, that is the beauty of being an American too, man, is you can play into the narrative and just go along with everybody else. And man, I'm into Madonna and Winona and
knock yourself out.
Whoever the next thing is. And you can just continue to follow that line. Or when you start cutting across it, which is it's like the most American thing you can do.
Yeah.
And figuring everything out for yourself and what you like and whatever. It's fun and it's pretty freeing too. But anyway, man.
This has been a good one.
It's a really good one. Hey, man, what's your favorite Metallica song? We'll end on that.
Favorite?
Or like just the first one comes to mind even.
Well, Master of Puppets. That was a turning point in my life. That's when I discovered headbanging and got a little anger out, even though I didn't have any. I discovered weightlifting at a young age, and
did you listen to them a lot
together.
Working out?
Oh yeah,
I mean it's a pretty common thing to work out to, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anyway,
they're rad, bro. Until it sleeps. You like that song?
No, I don't like any of the Black Album.
Dude, that's on Load.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, it is.
Oh yeah. I thought Enter the Sandman. Yeah. I thought you were talking about Enter the Sandman.
That's all I can play, bro. I'll get sued.
Yeah. Well, this has been a good one.
Yeah, it's a really good one, man. Thank you very much. Peace.
See ya.